Okay, welcome back, everybody. It's Tuesday, September 24th. This is the Commissioner's Work Session. And jumping right into it, what we have up first is extension of agreements with All-Star Media and Jebediah's at the Pitkin County Airport. Diana and Dan are here. Take it away.
Thank you. I'm just going to share. Oh, Abby, sorry.
Are you guys fighting with each other?
There we go. Okay, thank you everyone for having us here today. Thank you for having us here. We wanted to discuss with everyone a possibility of extending All-Star Media and Jebediah's agreement at the airport. I'm going to start with All-Star Media if that is okay with everyone. They have a current,
Real quick, we have.
we do. We have representatives from both Jebediah's and All-Star with us today.
And Rio Burrows is online, I believe, too. Jebediah's.
Come on up.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Don't be shy, Mike.
Former commissioner, right?
Sir.
Former state representative.
Is a state.
And you are now.
The state senator.
Okay, thanks. Okay, mic's on. We're ready to go.
And you're here to add if I forget anything for either of you. All-Star's current agreement with us started in 2021 and was a series of 5 one-year extensions. So they are on a month-to-month currently with us. They do have a desire to upgrade equipment and help secure advertising relationships. A longer agreement obviously would help them in place of that versus month to month, making the infrastructure needs they desire. We have a few examples of one on the left-hand side of your screen is in the hold area for us for the gates, and the other on your right is above baggage claim. And Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but these would both be upgraded. 2 examples of upgraded screens for you if you were to get longer agreements.
Correct. We may not upgrade the one on the left since that's in departures, but the 3 that run in sync with each other in arrivals, we would upgrade all 3 of those to a, basically top of the class that's available in our industry.
I'm going to stop there for a second to see if anybody has any
Questions,
questions about our
comments?
current All-Star Media agreement.
This is like the video things, right? They
The
change.
video
and-
walls.
yeah.
Yep.
And I just out of interest, I noticed last time I passed through, you had ads up for like hospitals in Texas or something. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're appealing to the Texas audience.
Well,
here
I don't
in
know if
Aspen.
we're appealing. The audience
They
of
are.
Aspen is appealing to fundraisers of hospitals in
Elsewhere.
other. So this isn't our first time with that
Interesting.
hospital in Houston.
Got it.
But when they're looking for, big dollar donors, and Houston's obviously a major
here.
feeder market for Aspen, it made
They,
sense.
they
So
joined the club.
yeah.
Right.
And I apologize. They've been so good with us about putting airport-specific items up as well when we've asked
Right. Okay.
for
great.
that. And they're really good about helping with any kind of volunteer opportunities that are out in the community. We've had
Do those
reach out.
ads run on the tri-panel or the one in the one in arrivals or departures?
all of them.
They run
Like
on-
generally when a client buys, whether it's a PSA or a paying client, we run them on the entire network.
Got it.
Because I know that we were able to utilize that during COVID
Right,
which was very beneficial in educating the public when they got off the plane as to
right.
what the needs were. So, thanks.
Okay. If not other questions, we'll go to Jebediah's. I don't see any other questions. Let's keep moving.
Okay.
That was hard.
We have Jedediah's as well. Their current agreement expires December of this year. If you recall, we brought this back to you to their latest amendment to align with their state liquor license, which makes it a little bit easier for Jeanette and staff to extend their liquor license because they do need a current lease with us to be able to extend that. And with that last renewal, we did have a revised MAG from them, and as well as their flexibility in helping us with our closures, which 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, almost 4 weeks this year, which we'll discuss later, and their thoughts and ideas for a longer term closure when we go to do that is always helpful. They also have upgrades that they desire in their current space and invested in an offsite kitchen down valley to help assist with food here as well. So they've made some significant investments here, but are desiring a longer term lease as well to continue to do that. And we have some photos of their current space. Their bar area with their state liquor license, as well as, and I don't want to steal your thunder completely, but I thought this was such a great idea. They do have a food truck, and that would be available to us during closures too. So we'd still supply the community with a food option at the airport during our temporary closures, as well as a longer term closure for construction.
Interesting.
If we're closed, why do we need to offer food at the airport? I don't understand.
We have contractors, employees still there
Oh, I
every
see.
Still have a
day,
lot
and
of people
it's
out
great.
there.
Actually, they had said too, less time of them off the clock to go down valley to get
I see,
food.
yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I see Francie, then Kelly.
I forget your first name, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mike.
Mike. I just have to tell you how thrilled I was with the changes you made. I know I was pretty harshly critical of you the first time you came before us. And I was blown away by your response and the fact that you redid all the food thing, and all of your packaging was compostable, and it was an incredible turnaround. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Chairman, Commissioner, appreciate that.
Oh, say I noticed that as well. So thank you. Thanks for bringing it up. Who was next? Kelly was next.
Yeah, quickly, probably a question for Dan or Diane. I notice, at least in the AIS, it mentioned that Jedediah's extension would be for 5 years or until the new terminal commences. Are those the same terms with All Star
It'd be the
Media
same.
as well? I mean, it's
Same.
a little bit easier for you. You can remove equipment, I guess, but yeah, I wasn't sure if how that went.
Yeah, we're anticipating the same
Okay.
terms for both.
Okay. Thank you.
Steve.
When a new terminal is built, would the contracts be automatically extended, or would it go into a new RFP? And I mean, we could potentially end up with more than one food establishment, for instance, in a bigger terminal.
Exactly. Our thoughts were to go out for RFPs for all the services for a new terminal.
Okay.
Patty.
So yeah, I'm just gonna say that it makes great sense. Our staff at the airport, we're already giving them a lot to deal with. And hopefully after November, we'll have even more to deal with. So I think it makes sense to extend it for 5 years, and also to allow both of the leases to have the opportunity to upgrade their facilities, their opportunities out there. So I'm definitely supportive of what staff is bringing forward to us.
Okay. Anything else? Anything? I'd love to opportunities to address us, the board, and on the topics. Since you went first, Dave, anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just a thought, I was really impressed with the food wagon concept when the airport was closed. But there's not food available for the people unless they're in the secure area of the airport, and maybe having the food wagon available outside for anybody arriving, anybody who's already gone through departure wants to grab something, they're already out of the secure area, and then they're wanting something to eat, and maybe that would be a possible thing that Jedediah's could do, is have the food wagon there all the time. So just a thought, I don't want to put it in the contract requiring that, but that's the one thing in the packet that really impressed me, was that you were doing that. And I presume you load up all the food down from the Elgibel, your food preparation site, and then get it into the food wagon and then go from there. Is that right?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, if I could, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. We have an area outside security that we use during on seasons, and so that we do have a limited availability. But back to the truck, actually we purchased that truck for a similar construction project at our other facility in Jackson. And as Diane mentioned, the big plus was, and during construction, when the workers were there, we could have the truck right there at, when you're closed, especially during runway work, it's very time sensitive. And so what we worked out is we worked directly with the contractors during that time. And so we'd have food service when the folks were taking break, when the workers were taking breaks, so make sure that they had adequate opportunities to get food quickly so they could then take their breaks and then get back to work, so they wouldn't have to travel. Sometimes that can be, half the battle is traveling uptown to get something to eat, or even going across the street to ABC can be challenging at certain times. So it's busy. And so we wanted to be there to try to optimize that for the workers. And so it is a thought at other times too. And it's something, everything is so tight there, as far as everything is so constrained. And right now the facilities themselves, we feel like if we plug in another toaster, we could bring the whole place down. And we don't want to, that's the last thing in the world we want to do. So, based on that, but yes, the kitchen down at Elgibel has really helped us out. And in addition, and this is a question that Mr. Chairman, you had before at a previous meeting, we also now have branched out and we're doing grab-and-go food for the Aspen Ski Company, also working with the World Cup folks, work with summer events. And so we're trying to extend our reach in the community, which I know was a question. And we're continuing to do that and enjoy very much, and we're honored to be here. And we look forward to being here. And in a time when a new terminal is built, we'll definitely be an applicant during any process.
Eddie, sure.
It's an awesome truck, by the way.
I was just gonna say, we'll go with it as long as we get that really cool blue truck.
The truck is cool.
Francie and I are both of it.
I
It's a cool
just
truck.
wanted to ask about the. It's interesting to hear that you're expanding like that, and I think the food choices I've seen have become certainly more attractive and more sophisticated, if that's the right word, for the market here. And I think people, obviously, if they weren't responding it, you'd change it. So it seems like it must be working.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's reflected well in the amount of rent we're on a percentage basis. And so yes, I think it is. With our last contract, we busted through actually higher. We've always put in numbers that our rent goes up when our business goes up. It actually exceeded our expectations, which is one of the reasons why we're most interested in this extension, so we can plan. Right now with a December shutdown date, a little hard for us to get into too much advanced planning. Right. So we'd like to get beyond that, and we could save significant amounts of money in energy costs with new refrigeration and some new equipment. This type of extension will allow that, even in the current configuration and the current power requirements, which I say will be lessened because we're going to bring in new era equipment, just like the screens, more something that's more adequate, better for the environment and better for the electric load.
And I should say they also have been excellent partners for us to assist through closures, through anything that our team needs. So
great.
They've been wonderful to work with.
The question I had was, did you consider other terms of the other lengths of term of the lease, or is 5 what that you're requesting, and you're comfortable with that?
We've looked at it. I'm sorry, Dan,
Oh,
if you
no,
want to go
go
ahead. We were trying to come up with something that was best in anticipation of a new terminal and what would get them the most space for their investment, the most time for their investment. And that's kind of where we were bringing it to you with an initial thought of 5 years or a new terminal.
Got it. Thank you. And Francie?
We can't bring more amps into the airport building?
Not on that side of the airport, unfortunately. It's,
That's
no more
been the issue
toasters.
all along.
It's
right?
what?
it-
What were you saying, Dan?
oh, we just don't have we don't have the power needs. We'd have to bring in a new transformer on that side of the airport, which would be a significant investment.
I see.
We're waiting to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to happen. We're just waiting.
for a lot of things.
Okay, but his screens probably use less power. You know, so
We can trade.
plug that toaster in. Okay.
Process-wise, so we just direct staff to bring it back to us, then, so just like we did with
It's a
the car
single or a
rentals.
double, single
It
reading,
would be a
double
double
reading?
reading.
I think
reading?
two.
Two
I think,
reads.
yeah.
Okay, it's a two read. Okay, thank you for that. I don't know if there's anything else, but thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, have you been to Europe through the European airports since we last talked about this years ago? If you have a chance.
Actually, I have.
I wanted to hear, we'll have to do that offline, but I want to hear where you went.
So we do have consensus to move it forward.
Thumbs up?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think we do. Great, thanks for coming in.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
see you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
See how
guys.
easy that was? Yeah. Okay. All right, up next, and we are 6 minutes ahead of schedule. Gee, I was rushing them.
And we were 10 minutes behind starting. You're doing good.
I know, we're back on, maybe it was the coffee I had this morning. Okay,
always
thank
have
you, great to
coffee.
see you again. Congratulations, it sounds like things are just going great.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
Did your
take
wife
care.
find a property?
She's hunting. I gotta go find it. Thank you.
Take care. Okay, up next, we have a Healthy Rivers and Streams interview. Charlotte, come on up. And Ned, is this Ned?
Yep.
Excellent. Oh, we're looking forward to this. Healthy Rivers has been on our minds lately. Lisa, nice to see you again. And Lisa.
God, both Lisas today, twice.
Lisa and Lisa are here, the experts.
Great. Ned, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for applying.
Good afternoon.
Appreciate your willing to take a chance and dive in head first, so to speak. All right, I want to begin this. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. A fascinating resume. And so how did you get here and decide that water was your thing? You have to turn
Well-
your microphones on. Yeah, okay, there you go.
It just kind of happened. During college, I ended up with a job with Grand Canyon Dories as a boatman in Grand Canyon. So I did 7 seasons running commercial trips. I had a Park Service license, and then, starting in graduate school, one day I went over to Friday afternoon to go talk with the hydrology professor, probably to share riverboat stories and have a pitcher of beer, and it kind of evolved from there.
Perfect. What a great provenance. Excellent. Yeah. Okay. I tell us. Go. Keep going. And then, how did you get to the valley? What happened?
Okay, well, I began my career with the USGS as a hydrologist in Denver, and I became the chief of the River Mechanics Project, which was a group that was responsible for maintaining and protecting habitat, particularly for threatened and endangered species, birds, fish, riparian vegetation. And I guess I came over here the first time to collect information on Maroon Creek and the Crystal River about 1985, and published reports on aquatic habitats, particularly for fish in Colorado. So that began it. And of course, living in Boulder and skiing, I would come over here frequently. And then about 11 years ago, my wife and I bought a house out in Old Snowmass.
Oh, excellent. Great. Well, I have to share that I did a science trip down the Grand to make a film. And
Oh, terrific.
We were doing sampling at the bottom of the river looking for food supplies for humpback chub and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And it
Well,
was
that
so
was,
much fun.
those were one of the issues that when Glen Canyon Dam was authorized, there wasn't really any concern for that or sort of park resources. And as the effects of dam operations became apparent, then you have these endangered fishes. And also you saw the sandbars that are so nice to camp on that are built by reoccurring flows. So that's a very typical thing. I was the principal investigator for the 1997 experimental flood release.
We were down there.
And for 10 years, I was the USGS representative to the Colorado River Commission.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. What a great background. Anything else you want to tell us about what you know about the Healthy Rivers Board? And
I know a little bit. I've attended some of their meetings. I am the chair of the Snowmass Capitol Creek Caucus now, and so I've had some involvement with the Healthy Rivers Board. I also have been working with Roaring Fork Conservancy to establish some stream gauges around the county that will be used to ensure and protect the in-stream flow rights on some of our streams. So that's another part of that. Through the Roaring Fork Conservancy, I sort of, they got me involved in Lincoln Creek, so we can talk about that a little bit later if you're interested.
great, thank you. I want to open it up to questions from my associates.
I think it's interesting he went from Stanford to Berkeley. I think I didn't really realize your adventures in a dory. My son, I saw him coming home on Saturday in the middle of that torrential rainstorm with his dory. He had been out on the water on the guide trip. And I said, so how much water's in the dory or in the river? Because his dory was pretty full by the time he got home driving it down 133. But anyway, I think your resume is fascinating, as Greg said. But I just want to make sure, and I'm going to look at staff, there's no conflict of interest with his resource engineering or anything with who we contract with, or, okay,
Could be an asset. Kelly.
thank you.
Hi,
Thank you
nice
for
to
applying.
meet you, and thank you so much for
Pleasure.
applying. I'm curious if you have any thoughts about how the Healthy Rivers and Streams program and board is working now, and taking advantage of opportunities that we have, or what you
I'd
might
say
like
that
to see.
I mean, there's a lot I don't know about now. I've attended some of their meetings as part of being the caucus chairman, and but I guess I need to find out more about them. I certainly read their literature and been involved around the county. They have a lot of good things that are going on: habitat, recreation, water quality. So there's quite a few things. But there's always more demands, and where you set your priorities and where the community would like to go with it, I think is important to gather that information too. I know they have a workshop retreat coming up here in another month or so that I would enjoy participating in.
Great. Well, thank you for applying. I think
Great.
you're a
Steve
great
had a
fit.
question, and then Francie.
So, thank you. I must make a full disclosure here about Ned and myself. A couple of years ago, we were on a river trip on the San Juan River, just Ned and his boat and our boat, because Ned wanted to get to know Molly and me better because of the Molly being on the caucus board and I
Great.
being a county commissioner. On our first night out, we discovered that we were in the same class at Stanford, the class of 1970. We lived in the same dormitory our freshman year, although
That's
there
hilarious.
were 8 wings and Ned was over on the other side.
Wow.
So we never met each other till about 2 years ago now.
Oh, that's great.
And we've become good friends and have had adventures together. We went on a hike in the Flat Tops wilderness area
That
last
was Ned who
year.
went with you. I
and
heard about that. Yeah.
Yesterday, Ned and I went up and we turned water, went to our head gate and turned water in our ditch, and I showed him some of our irrigation system while we were up there.
Great. Ah,
So I know
fun.
Ned pretty well. And I'd like to find out, I mean, I'm intrigued by the possibilities of what we could do on Lincoln Creek. And I know you spent some time down in Brazil doing water studies, and I think it had to do with a mining operation there, or the effects of a mining operation perhaps, but could you kind of tell us about your experiences in different rivers and how those experiences could help us on coming up with solutions and mitigation stuff for Lincoln Creek?
Sure. So in many ways, the situation in Brazil and Lincoln Creek are kind of polar opposites. In Brazil, this was a very large tailings dam that failed. Over 100 million tons of tailings went down 700 kilometers of a river. Wow. Overall, it's not particularly toxic stuff. There's lots of it, but it wasn't, you wouldn't say this is really, there are some issues, but it's not huge. Whereas on Lincoln Creek, it's a relatively small amount of drainage from a couple of different sources, but it's very high concentrations of copper and zinc, some of the highest I've ever seen. And it's very acidic. So there are those differences, but then there are similarities and that is the public and community perception and concerns about the material, and that these evolve over time. And so, for example, on Lincoln Creek, it really began a couple years ago with fish kills in Grizzly Reservoir. And then, as we saw this July, folks down in, let's say, Basalt or Carbondale who had no perception or interest in Grizzly Reservoir saw a bright orange river going by. Well, so it's different time scales, different concerns, different interest groups. And I think that's one thing that, we can certainly anticipate. And that this year, a lot of information has been collected, water quality sampling and such, and that will start to become available in the next couple of months. I always have said my experience has been, you want to own the data. So I think having the county involved and, as I said, not relying upon other groups or to provide the information, and that it's going to evolve over time. There is a certain amount of data and information that will tell you this is a problem. And then there will be another more extensive information that will put a boundary around it. And then you'll need more information and details to identify the best way to mitigate the impacts. As all of you know, I think, the Ruby mine is quite remote. Access is quite limited. The amount of material draining at that point, if you could get to it and operate something, would be much more feasible. Once it gets into Lincoln Creek and is downstream, then it's mixed up and it's a much larger volume of material that you would have to treat, but then it's down at an area that's more accessible. So, I think that's one of the things to balance, and there may be ways to do this, particularly, let's say, I've heard a suggestion for a pipeline, that you take the drainage out don't allow it into Lincoln Creek, and pipe it down to the reservoir. So just an example.
Got it. Great, fascinating stuff. I'm assuming the Brazilian River had a much higher volume flow as well.
It's a very big river called the Rio Doce. It's about 700 kilometers long, goes from Belo Horizonte down to the Atlantic coast. It's interesting, Belo is a town I don't think many Americans have heard of. I hadn't heard of it. It has 10 million people.
Amazing.
So,
Probably a town.
you know, these are huge populations.
Right, right.
Wow.
Francie, go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for offering to lend your expertise to the Healthy Rivers and Streams. It sounds like you'd be a great fit, and it's wonderful to have somebody else in the community who cares a lot about our rivers and streams. So, thank you for your application. I don't have any questions.
Okay.
I wanted to say that I was on the initial Healthy Rivers and Streams first class on there. And I think Andre Willie is still there after 8, 9, 10, 12 years, however old Healthy Rivers is, 14. Wow. And at the time, though, I remember when we got it going, San Miguel County and others were saying, wow, how did you do that? We want to do that. And I'm just wondering, is there any way we can make a model and export it to other communities? Export it, exploit it, exploit it, and export
Did
it.
you say exploit it?
And I just thought that, I don't know what you thought about that, but I wanted to, I've always tried to bring that idea back.
I think Glenwood may have a tax on their ballot.
Wow.
Because we're the only ones in the state right now that has a,
The Glenwood might,
Sales
that's
tax.
great news.
I thought that's what it said.
No,
1
it's
cent
very
for healthy
innovative, and it's providing leadership statewide. And I think that a lot of the, you know, what you suggested is kind of already going on. Other counties are aware of this and know, I mean, it's more than just Pitkin County. It's the whole watershed. Sort of a larger picture that you're all aware of is that there are these, there's negotiations between states about the Colorado River Compact, how shortage criterias will be allocated. The water use in Colorado is right up to its compact limit amount, and there's going to be a lot of looking at priorities, increasing efficiencies, and how to best serve our communities with the water that we have. And I think this is an essential part of that.
Got it. Thank you for that. The last thing was, it's been on my mind because I saw the news that the fisheries people were going to try to kill the zebra mussels with high copper concentrations. And it occurs to me, we could bottle this stuff and send it down to them.
Yes.
I don't know if you get FDA approval for that, but
Or we just let it go in the river, you know, that doesn't solve our
the
problem.
mussels and everything else.
Thank you for this. So the way this works is we go through the end of the recruitment schedule. I don't know when that would end for the,
Today is the last.
today's
two
the last day.
interviews.
Okay, so I assume you're the last one we're talking to.
So we've interviewed
There's-
Andre, no, I'm just gonna clarify, Andre for his renewal,
Correct,
Kristen will be here today.
right.
And then we interviewed Andrea
Andrea Schafran.
Great, thank
for the
you.
open seat.
And then we will put it on our calendar to ratify and get back to you, and
Okay.
we'll be in touch. But thank you for coming in.
It was
Thank
very
you.
nice to
Grateful
meet
that
you, Ned.
you've put yourself forward.
Your comment, when I finished at Stanford, my advisor told me to go east, and I made it 4 miles across San Francisco Bay.
That's great.
There are actually quite a few Stanford graduates who then they go to Berkeley for their postdoctoral
Yep.
work or
He was
working on
just
a
one of those
doctorate and
rebel
master's.
rousers in the seventies.
How many days did you have at the bottom of the Grand Canyon? That's the big question.
I've done 34 trips, so,
Okay,
you know,
18-day
typically
trips, 16, 18?
14 to 20 days each,
Right.
and then other rivers as well.
Time well
You.
spent.
That's
I
awesome.
float the Roaring Fork.
I've done the Green 46 times.
Pardon?
I've done the Green River 46 times, so
That's impressive.
I've
Well,
only done
it's
the
a good
Grand
trip.
once.
It's a
But
good trip.
yeah,
I've got about 100 days in the bottom of the Grand.
that's amazing. That's awesome.
Okay, that was great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you. Charlotte, good job. Lisa, great job. Thanks for bringing them in.
And Kristen.
And then Kristen's up next. Come on down.
Hi, it's
Hello.
actually Kirsten.
Kirsten, oh, pardon me.
It says
That's-
Kristen
Yeah,
on
we
our thing.
have a typo here. So
sorry.
Kirsten, thank you.
I should know that. That's my daughter's name.
Tell us about Healthy Rivers and why you want this position. and
Yeah.
however you'd like.
Well, I'd like to renew my position. I've been on the board now for a little over 2 years. I assumed the vacancy that Lisa Tasker left when she became staff. And I think we've been able to do some really exciting new things in the 2 years I've been on the board. The one that I'm personally very excited about is our beaver restoration effort. As a general rule, I think river restoration, watershed restoration in the past couple decades has had a real focus on the river channel itself. And I think what we're seeing now with the increasing threat of wildfire and climate change is that we need to be looking at the whole watershed, going all the way up to the tributary headwaters, and that's going to help us keep the river that we look at when we go out to the park or when we're driving along 82 and help the river stay healthy and usable for recreation and all the amenities that we enjoy because of our rivers, not only the Roaring Fork, but also the Crystal and the Frying Pan, which is what I live on. I am currently vice chair of the board and have been happy to take on that more of a leadership role, which is allowed now that wider watershed members are allowed to be leadership on the board. Previously, you had to be a Pitkin County resident. I am an Eagle County resident. I'm just kind of across that line there, but Pitkin County does maintain my road in the winter, which I appreciate. Some of the other things I've been able to do since joining the board is I led our subcommittee to revamp our grant-making process to just so that the expected information is clearer to applicants and gather more information, particularly from the financial perspective on what the money's actually going to be spent on for our board to make informed decisions about how money is being spent. I've also been very active in attending events on behalf of the board. I haven't been at every Crystal River Wild and Scenic stakeholder meeting, but I did attend the main one at the Roaring Fork High School. As not a resident of the Crystal, I tend to defer to my board members who are residents of the Crystal on some of those issues, but I've consistently attended the Sustaining Colorado Watersheds Conference in Avon, which the board sponsors on behalf of the board, and have gotten a lot of value about that in terms of thinking about, or seeing what other groups are doing in other watersheds besides the Roaring Fork that maybe we can bring to our watershed to improve things. So, for example, when the Roaring Fork Wildfire Collaborative came to us this past week seeking funding to do a watershed restoration action plan, RAP as they call it, that was something I was already very familiar with. I'd seen compatriots in other watersheds, if you will, working on those plans, so I was really excited that that's moving forward for the Roaring Fork, because certainly from where I sit up the Frying Pan, my biggest concern in terms of our watershed health there is wildfire. I mean, if we were to have a wildfire in the upper Frying Pan, that would be incredibly damaging to Route I and a lot of the water infrastructure up there. I also have been excited to bring kind of a bigger picture view of Colorado water law and politics to the board. During these past 2 years that I've been on the board, I was able to do the Water Leaders Program through Colorado Water Education, where I got to interact with other folks that do a lot of work on water throughout the state, and that's helped me build kind of a network throughout the state. And I think one of the other things that we should have on our radar moving forward in the Roaring Fork is what's going on the Colorado River in terms of this system conservation pilot program, where they're paying farmers not to use their water to try to fill up Lake Powell. But we haven't been tracking the water, and that's something new that our CWCB is trying to do moving forward, is that if we're going to keep spending this money to ask farmers to fallow fields and send more water downriver, how can we get credit for that? And it's kind of statewide initiatives like that I'm keeping an eye on, and hopefully am bringing a perspective to the board, and thinking about ways that our actions here in the Roaring Fork Valley interact with what's going on in the wider watershed.
Right, thank you for that. Wow,
Busy.
fascinating. How far up the frying pan do you live? Or do you live right at Rudai, or do you live
No, I live 4 miles up at Seven Castles, you know where
Seven
it opens
Castles?
up.
Of course, yeah. Beautiful
But we do
spot.
have a boat we take out on Rudai, so get up there pretty often.
Fantastic. I did want to ask you one question, then I'm going to open it up, and that
Sure.
was, I see you mentioned that you're interested in knowing how the board members could take more of an initiative on ideas and projects, and I thought that was intriguing, and I'm just wondering what you have in mind, and will it scare everybody?
Yeah. Well, so at this last board meeting, I actually presented my idea, which is to fund a scholarship for local leaders in the Roaring Fork Valley to attend Water Education Colorado's water fluency training, with the idea that we have a lot of local leaders. Maybe they're on HOA boards, maybe they're, on town council or something in Snowmass Village or Carbondale, who are involved in water-related decisions, but don't necessarily have a deep understanding of Colorado water law, policy, or even the science behind watershed restoration. And I think moving forward, there's plenty for us to spend money on right now, between what's been going on, the research we're doing up at Lincoln Creek, and our beaver efforts with the Forest Service. But looking down the road, I want to build a pipeline of new ideas. And the best way to come up with new ideas is to widen the network of people in which you're coming up ideas with, or working with to come up with ideas. So that was an example of one of the ones. I guess what I'm saying is I don't have a prescription that, hey, we must do this. But in my experience as a water professional, project ideas come out of unique collaboration and people with different perspective and ideas coming together. So hopefully through that initiative, which costs like $1,500 to $3,000 a year, depending on how many we fund, we can start to interact with other leaders in the valley that may be coming to water from a different perspective and therefore have new ideas for projects.
What's the name of the course?
Water fluency.
Water Education Colorado. Francie, you got a question?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for your service and your passion about rivers and water. And I want you to know that I certainly noticed the comment about bridges and recreational access.
Yes.
So you're a woman after my own heart, I can see, so.
Steve?
So I'm thinking about your comment about how can you store water in a downstream reservoir like Lake Powell and
Yep.
get credit for it? And actually, I've thought about that a lot. On the Arkansas River, there's the John Martin Reservoir, no relation to our local John Martin, where before that was built, farmers on the Arkansas River, sometimes in the middle of the winter, they would get a phone call after dark and they'd be told they can take their water now. And they would actually go out in the dark on frozen ground and be irrigating their fields just to try to get some water into their soil. After the John Martin Reservoir was built, they didn't have to do that anymore because their water was being stored downstream to protect. What it does basically is protect the compact water going into Kansas and Oklahoma. And so they actually, the water downstream actually protects those upstream and their irrigation rights. So there is a precedence for that, and I think that should be explored some more. So
Yeah, Rudai is a great example locally. As a frying pan resident, it's pretty easy for me to go out. Well, not anything is very easy in water, right? But I certainly have the opportunity to go out and request an augmentation contract from the Saltwater Conservancy District. Whereas in the Crystal River Valley, where there is currently not a reservoir like that, it's more difficult, which is why I've been really encouraged by the work that that staff for the Healthy Rivers program and the attorney's office have done in looking at augmentation options in the Crystal, because in some places a reservoir is the right answer, in other places it's not.
And one of your suggestions that I really like, and I think I agree with you, that your board and our board never, I don't know that we have ever gotten together for just a joint meeting. I think we should have a joint meeting every year between the BoCC and the Healthy Rivers and Streams Board.
Yeah.
And maybe make it even a social event, like a meeting over
trip.
dinner or something.
Over fish?
River trip.
Just something to increase the communication and the understanding, and just so everybody's having more fun in the process.
Yes. And I think that gets back to my point of we come up with new project ideas when we cross-pollinate and talk to folks that we maybe normally wouldn't want to talk to.
All right, thanks. Krista, Kelly, did you have a
No,
hand
no,
up? No,
I don't.
We're good.
Yeah, no,
Patty?
thank you for
Well, thank you.
reapplying.
Your passion is contagious, and that's a good thing.
Okay, so Charlotte, what's our procedure here? What's next?
So the next work session, I'll bring back a kind of an overview of who's applied and who needs renewing and that kind of thing. And have you make a decision, and then we'll take that decision to a resolution.
Great.
So we have
Thank you.
2 reapplying and 2 vying for 1 open seat.
Correct.
Got it.
Okay,
Great. Kristen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thanks,
We'll be-
Kirsten.
We'll be in touch. Thank you for your service so far, too. It's been great to have you on there. Thank you, Charlotte.
I think
Lisa,
an on the
Lisa,
river meeting
Ned.
would be perfect, actually.
Yeah.
Colorado preference.
Okay, we're a little ahead of schedule, 6 minutes ahead now. 2 p.m., it's the review of the sample ballot and direction for resolutions of support. Are you the point guy on this, Rich?
I'm gonna text Ryan real
Oh.
quick here.
See, we're ahead of him. He's
Yeah.
having. Jacob, welcome.
Thank you.
Jacob Smith from CC4CA is in the room. Glad you're here. Have you ever been up here?
I've never met with the BOCC.
No, he never.
Great,
has.
fantastic. Glad you're here. Thank you for bringing that up this week. And sorry I didn't get back to you. We were in meetings ever since all day, so you'll be fine.
I just wanted to pose a question. Since Jacob's here already, do we want to move our meeting with him forward? Or
Well-
maybe Jacob wants to listen to our other discussions and just
And
for.
get out of here sooner.
Your
Well,
education,
it's up-
but-
I guess we could tell Rye that we're,
Yeah.
is there anybody else joining us?
It's up to you, Gal.
I don't know, I bet he wants to hear our discussion about ballot questions.
I'm not sure he does. I would love to do that, but I don't know if Rye has to be in court or something.
No, he'll be back down here.
Okay,
So,
give us a
yeah.
minute, and we may just flip you, and that'll give you more time to stroll around and go to hit the Louis Vuitton and the Prada shops and all that.
Exactly what I was planning.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, Ryan was down here a second ago, so I'm not sure he
And
bailed
you're,
out here.
and you're
but,
presenting to Basalt Town Council tonight, I hear. Right, excellent. Great.
I can't spend too much time.
Well, so I was CC4CA rep, and then Steve came on, and we discovered that both of us have a similar schedule conflict. And so, as interested as we are, it's a priority what CC4A is doing, but we're not always at every meeting, and that's. But I do talk to Anita fairly often, so I'm lobbying and writing, that sort of thing. But anyway, it's good to have you here.
So I was actually really active in the creation of CC4CA. And if you notice some similarities between our building here we're sitting in and the Boulder building in Longmont, the county building in Longmont, I went to a CC4CA meeting there when we were picking, I think interviewing people for being lobbyists and whatnot. And I really liked some of the aspects of that building, and so I took photographs and I brought them back because we were just planning this building right then. And so there are certain aspects of this building that are taken directly from Boulder County's building, just because I was there for a CC4CA meeting.
That's pretty funny. Hey, Rye.
Yeah.
We were thinking of flipping you with Jason, who's up here from Denver,
Jacob.
Boulder?
Golden.
Golden.
Jacob.
Jacob. Sorry, Jacob, I know that.
He called me Kelly today.
Do you have to
Kelly.
be somewhere? Can you do a flip with us?
No, I'm here with you guys. I didn't even know I was on, so.
Oh,
I'm ready
God,
to go
okay.
whenever.
Hey, Jacob, come on up and let's just get
Sit
you.
here and listen
Yeah,
to
I'd
him.
That way
love
we have
to.
a slightly bit more luxury to hear what you have to say and get you on the road sooner. You can try to avoid our rush hour.
I could get on the road sooner.
And so
too,
could
if,
Kelly, perhaps.
When we wrap up all of our things today.
Yeah. Great. Well, welcome.
Oh, yeah, you sure did. I was wondering when
I took the bus and then I realized, oh, the bus
Here, you're
might
gonna
be
actually
stuck
be
in paving.
Great.
On the other hand, it could be faster.
Back to the salt.
Oh, just to get your kids.
It's nice to see y'all.
Yeah,
It saved
welcome. Are they?
Yeah, I know, it's a mess. And they're doing McLean's Flats today.
This
Yeah, they've been doing that for a while.
Yesterday they did power plant, so
It's like when I
Need
was,
the
went
airport.
Tomorrow is
by
the bridge,
Snowmass, you know, and up that way.
What
To
happened
avoid
down
You know, on a
Inspection.
bicycle, on an
Had they
e-bike,
repaved
all of that's
each other's
transparent.
Thank you so much.
We were just doing maintenance.
Okay, gang,
Really?
and hey,
Not
Levi's here.
accident.
If there was a bridge
Are you
where I
coming
could
here
take
for Jacob?
anybody to Basalt, I
Excellent.
would.
we saved
Well,
those
you
for
can come up and
82.
hang out if you want to participate. You'd be welcome to join. Okay, so this is Jacob Smith from CC4CA. It's our lobbying organization. We have about, 44 or
43 now.
43 municipalities, counties.
That's
And this is the lobbying organization for Colorado Communities for Climate Action. Is that the?
yep. That's
I got
it.
it right.
It's right there in front of you. So.
Oh, so there it is. Okay.
You
Take
did
it
a
away,
good job
Jacob.
remembering it, though.
Welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks very much for the invitation. It's good to see you all. I know some of you, but haven't met
Hi.
all of you, so it's great to meet
Haven't
those.
met. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So thank you very much for giving us a little time. It sounded like about 15 minutes.
I'll give you a couple more. We're ahead of schedule right
Okay.
now.
Well, as little or as much as you all want, really. What I was thinking to do is give you a quick refresher on what CC4CA is, what we do, a little bit of a look back, particularly at the last legislative session and some of the other regulatory work, and then a look forward at what we think is coming up. And happy to go into any depth on
And
any of that.
while we're talking, first off, you're part of our budget. We pay dues every year.
Yep.
And can you remind me what the amount is?
I have to look it up.
Okay, but in ballpark?
I really don't remember.
even-
It's
okay,
based
we'll
on
get to it.
population
We'll
size.
figure it out. Won't be too hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to
Okay.
misquote,
Okay.
but I'm happy.
Definitely no more than 5 figures.
No more than 5 figures. Yes, that's true.
That is very
That's
true.
right.
And more
Okay.
than zero.
And More than zero. Got it. Yeah, didn't mean to put you on the spot. Go ahead.
That's all right. I should have looked it up, but I didn't think to.
Take it away.
Great, thank you. Plus, I'm up here a little earlier than I expected. And you all know I work with Levi. He's, I'll just say at the outset, amazing. You guys are very lucky. You haven't been here that long, and it's just like lean in and show up at the meetings, and you're prepared, and you ask questions, and you help. It's Pickens County is well represented at CC4CA. We're really thrilled for that. So thank you for that. Are you happy with
Yeah.
as it is? Okay, great.
Yep.
So, or I'll drive some other way. Are the arrows
Did you
supposed to
plug it
drive
in
or no?
there?
So we
You
let you put it
driving,
up there. We don't let
Gabby,
you
or
do
is he-
anything with
I
it.
see the cursor. I see the cursor.
There you go.
All right.
He doesn't know
I
what he
feel
did,
like I
but he
missed
got
a
there.
slide though.
Maybe if you, the top left, those arrows that go up or down. I think that's just.
Oh, now the side arrows seem to be working.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. All right. We do climate, not technology. So really appreciate it again. I'll give you just a quick overview of what we are. Coalition of local governments, as Commissioner Bushman said, counties and munis across the state, 43 members. And you all were part of creating it. This started with about a half dozen jurisdictions about 7 years ago now. And I think the animating premise was when one jurisdiction shows up at the Capitol or at a rulemaking body and says, hey, we need you to do X, or we need this, or we want this, nobody really cares except if you're lucky your own state legislator or your own state senator. But if a bunch of jurisdictions can get together and speak with one voice, that has a really different impact. That was the premise, and it is clearly played out because we grow every year. We have more impact every year. I think we're more effective every year, and it's precisely because that's very true. When somebody is speaking on behalf of CC4CA, they're speaking on behalf of 43 jurisdictions that represent over a quarter of the state's population, and that tends to carry real impact. It's almost always the case that and legislative committee, somebody, if not more, represents one or more of the jurisdictions in the coalition. So there's almost always even a direct connection, and that changes. Local officials have a real power, have a voice that carries certain kinds of weight. And our job fundamentally is amplify and elevate those voices in strategic ways at just the right time so that we shape what happens at the state policy level. Most of what we do is at the state level. We do a lot of lobbying work at the legislature, and we do a lot of regulatory work at the state level. The PUC, the Air Quality Control Commission, ECMC, the Energy and Carbon Management Commission, CDOT, so those kinds of agencies that are making decisions that have statewide or larger scale implications for climate policy, greenhouse gas emissions, resilience, and those sorts of things. We also do a lot of work with the state agencies themselves and with the governor's office, so a lot of executive branch work. And then we do a little bit on the federal side. On the federal side, we focus more narrowly on places where we think we can have a material effect on the outcome, and that at the federal level isn't true nearly as often as it is here. So occasionally we'd engage on legislation when, like, say, a Senator Hickenlooper might be a swing vote, or his committee assignment puts them in a position to make a bigger difference. So, okay, cool, we're going to engage there because we think we can affect it. But the federal funding through BIL and IRA, that changed this pretty substantially. We have leaned heavily into engaging there from multiple angles, and I'll talk about those in a little bit, but just to say the federal funding side is an exception where we actually do a lot of work trying to essentially make it easier for you all to get federal money here and spend it doing climate forward things. And then we do some other, like, member services kinds of things, member support. We do a lot of briefings and webinars and trainings and provide resources. Because you all are such powerful voices by virtue of your title, if not for other reasons, having you testify is often really powerful. So a lot of what we spend our time doing is figuring out where are the most impactful places to plug elected officials in, and how do we make it as easy for you as possible. Like, we've done this with you a bunch. I know we do it some with you all, and our job is to make it as plug and play as possible. Some local elected officials have experience testifying in these venues, but many don't. And so it's pretty intimidating if you've never testified at the Air Quality Control Commission or at a legislative hearing. And even if you haven't done it in a while, or you don't do it daily, our job is just to make it super easy. So we'll get you registered. We'll help you with the logistics and timing. It's almost all virtual now. You can physically show up, but most people testify remotely, so we take care of that. We'll write talking points that you are welcome to use. You can adapt them. You can throw them away. Like, we're not telling you what to say, but we want to make it as easy for you, reduce the friction for you to plug in, and to make sure that your voice as a county commissioner has the kind of impact that it has the potential for, is capable of. So that's the general overview. This is a list of the members. Winter Park is our most recent member. We're thrilled. I'd say most of the members that have joined in recent years, it's the politics are shifting. The awareness of climate and climate impacts in those communities, and that it has real impacts to the local communities, that's growing. And the politics are shifting in a lot of places toward at least a little bit more willingness or desire to engage with climate policy. And that's really what's fueled our growth. We're a nonprofit. We're organized like a very typical nonprofit. We have a board of directors. Every jurisdiction has a seat on the board. If you were to describe the job to me on paper, like, come work for us and serve a board that has 43 members and each one of them represents an entire jurisdiction, I would probably walk away. But it works stunningly well.
And it requires consensus, I think.
And on top of that, requires consensus for some of the most important decisions. And despite everything you imagine would get in the way of it working well, it's probably the best functioning nonprofit I've ever run or been part of. The rapport among board members, and board members many of them are electeds, but many are staff as well. It's a mix. And so we're engaging with our members across levels, and they're engaging with each other. And we do our annual board retreat, our annual meeting that brings everybody together in person, and all that adds up to a rapport and trust that's really hard to come by and works way better than you would expect it to, given the numbers. These committees are a place you can plug in. Some of you know we always welcome anybody. Levi's on you at least attend at least 2 or maybe 3, and I think you might even be the rep on Ledge.
I think so.
So you are well represented, but also happy to plug any other staff or you all into committees to whatever extent you want to do that. Not expected, but happy to. High-level reflections on the 2024 legislative session. In the interest of time, I won't go through everything here, but I'll mention a few of these, and some of them are going to be relevant as we look forward to 2025. The budget was pretty constrained last session, and that meant that it was hard to pass bills that had a fiscal note. If the bill was going to cost the state money, it was hard. It's always hard, but it was harder last year than it often is. And that, I think, was part of what fueled a level of acrimony that was uncharacteristic, or at least not the norm. I mean, we've been getting some years like that, but last year and the last couple of years have been, I'd say, just a lot less pleasant. We're seeing legislators resign their seats because they think the environment is so toxic. And then on top of that, we have a presidential election cycle, and all the state house members and half the senators are up. So that adds another layer of just intensity and stakes. And so it was a less pleasant, just like human interaction wise session. And that did make it harder sometimes to move bills. It's not a stretch to say that Governor Polis and his administration are, if not the most hands-on with the legislature of any governor in Colorado's history, at least in that like upper tier. He has a level of engagement, hands-on with legislation and the legislature that everybody is still figuring out how that works and how to navigate it. And it just means he has a really heavy hand on lots of bills. I mean, you all certainly have experienced that 230, the land use bill last year, but we've seen it play out in lots of contexts. So that's one of the dynamics, and we don't expect that to change. Almost certainly going to continue. And then I'll just mention the last 2 items there. I said 230, but 213 was a land use bill last year. And we didn't have a single like omnibus, let's usurp local authorities over land use and give it to the state kind of bill this session. But there were a lot of smaller bills that did versions of that in smaller context. And so that did not, we were still operating with the echoes of the 213 fight, which wasn't really I'd say nasty, unpleasant. The governor did not earn a lot of friends or build a lot of relationships with local governments during that fight. And lots of legislators are still sour about how that happened last year, and lots of local governments for sure. So I think that shadow is still hanging over things that are the activities and the actions at the legislature, and that played out some were just bills where we, I think, could have been aggressively pushing for some level of, okay, state, you have this authority and leave this authority to locals. Local governments are so fearful, rightly so, of the governor's, I don't know if it's a war on local governments, but he certainly laid out local governments narratively as the villain in lots of issues. And so it just has made a lot of the issues we work on a lot more difficult to figure out how do we come up with good policies that work for our members and also will make a difference and are passable at the legislature. And please feel free to jump in on anything that.
Oh, you bet.
Okay.
Steve, question.
Well, you were talking about the relationship between the governor's office and the local governments, and we had our own unique experience with the governor's office in relation to the real estate transfer fee bill that we actually had sponsors for it last year, and took it to the governor's office ahead of time just to get their take and input right then. Well, the governor promised to veto it if it made it through the legislature, right before he even knew any details about it, I think. And so the sponsors evaporated real quickly because there's no point in spending a lot of time for something that he's already said he's going to veto it. So that kind of took away, from the legislative process and the exchange of ideas to create a good bill before it even started. And there were some bitter feelings about that.
Yeah, I'm sure there were.
Yeah.
And that story is repeated a bunch. I will say the number of actual vetoes is fewer than the number of veto threats. So We have certainly seen him threaten vetoes. We run the bill anyway, or in coalition with other groups, run a bill, pass it, and then put him in an awkward position because it does a bunch of things he wants, even though it has some provisions he doesn't want. And he sometimes vetoes them, but often also signs them. But he also is very good at scaring away sponsors with those threats and the governor's office has lots of different ways of leveraging, and his office has clearly figured out how to do a lot of that with legislators.
Yeah, and then they're pretty heavy-handed, I'd say.
I think that's a fair characterization, yeah.
You know,
I asked Anita Seitz, who you work with a bunch, she's our advocacy director and couldn't be here today, former mayor of Westminster and been on our staff now for a few years. She's our point person on all things legislative. And I asked her at the end of the session, can you sum up the session in just a few words? And her response was better than expected. And then she took some time to, this is a slide. She found and added the less ugly, the good, the bad, and the less ugly, because it felt like this was a session where everything was falling apart. None of the bills that mattered were going to pass. None of the bills we cared about were going to pass. Lots of bills that were going to pass that had provisions that were really harmful to local governments. And we managed in particularly the last couple of weeks to just salvage a bunch of those into either bills that would have been harmful that are now benign, or bills that might have been okay but had some real problems for local governments. We made those actually likely to work better or do beneficial things for us on climate. So the session turned out better than it could have. And sometimes I can't tell if it's every session feels that way and you just forget the previous years, but this one really did have that feel of up to the very, very end.
Yeah.
We might end up with nothing this session kind of feeling. I won't linger on this, these were the general topics that we spent time on, and I will share the deck with you all as well. Just quick numbers, again, won't linger on this, but you get some sense of the level of activity for us. 705 bills introduced. We evaluated 78, and then we actively took a position on 61 of those. We don't assertively lobby all of those bills. We then rank them based on how important they are, how much work they need, what are the politics around that bill. So it's about half of those that we were probably very hands-on in some fashion working. But we do a lot there at the session, and Anita won this year's award for being at the Capitol the latest of all of our witnesses. That was a 2 a.m. hearing.
Great award to get.
wow.
She wasn't asking for it, that's for sure. And then this is just outcomes in almost every bill that we engaged on with a position, a substantive desired outcome. We got what we wanted or got a good chunk of what we wanted. So it felt really good about the session because the outcomes were good for climate and good for local governments. I want to mention just a couple of examples, and again, happy to talk about more of these in any depth. One of them is the EV charging bill, the permitting bill. This is a good example of where the governor's vision and the legislators that he was collaborating with, that vision was essentially local governments are the problem. At least as they were telling the story, local governments are the problem, and they're the reason that we're not getting more charging stations permitted. So let's fix it by imposing time limits on local governments. If a permit's submitted, you have this number of days to issue your answer. And if none of that happens, they're going to get to go build their stuff anyway. So it's very much a usurping that local authorities kind of maneuver, very narrow but consequential. And we pushed back really hard in multiple ways, one of which was show us the data, because they really don't have, there isn't a good set of data or analysis that shows that local government permitting is the biggest problem. It's certainly a problem in some communities, but they couldn't defend the argument that it was the biggest problem. And we put a lot of work into, this is a great example of where our strategy was an amend strategy. Of course, we want to help reduce barriers to charging. We want to make it easier for local governments to do it. We want to see more charging stations everywhere. We just don't think the governor and the legislature are in the best position to tell local governments that you have 30 days to issue the permit, or we'll make you issue it, or whatever version we would have ended up with. And so we amended that out of the bill. We were able to pull the piece that had this local control usurpation element of it, and the result now is some more resources and more activity and more coordination around EV charging stations, which is all good. I feel like it's a good example also where our members probably could have tolerated some amount of the state saying, okay, how about we impose these limitations? Because our members tend to be very effective at getting permits out for things like this. Other jurisdictions that are less warm to it may not. So it feels like there's opportunities to come up with policies that will help make sure that the rest of the state that is lagging behind, maybe even deliberately obstructing whatever jurisdictions those might be, let's set some guardrails that help make sure the whole system works better, but don't tell, especially local governments that are actually doing it really well, that we're going to tell you what your problem is and how to fix it. So that was a good example of that kind of a strategy that ended up working. And that very top item, the extended producer responsibility program, you may recall that's where legislature said, let's create a fee on producers based on basically the environmental footprint of their packaging choices. So when you decide what you're going to package your toothpaste in, those choices have an environmental footprint, how much they weigh and transportation cost and the size and the other like greenhouse gas implications, and let's have a fee that reflects that. So we're basically taking costs that have always been externalized and internalizing them into the value chain. So by the time the product gets down here, it's been absorbed in the value chain, and the products are better reflecting the environmental cost of the decisions the producers made. And then all the money generated from that goes back to local governments to pay for recycling programs. The idea being every resident of Colorado should have recycling that is as good as, or at least as good as, their trash
Picking
hauling
counties.
service. I'm sorry?
At least as
Picking
good as
counties?
picking counties, yeah.
Yes. And that program, we had a critical hurdle that we had to pass this session, which was to get the bill passed 2 years ago. The concession was it has to go back to the legislature, but okay, we're just going to make it go back to the Joint Budget Committee rather than the whole legislature to get approval. It did. That could have undermined the program or slowed it down or even killed it. They approved it, and it's full steam ahead. So we're on track. I think it launches January 1 of 2026. And they've basically been going through all the steps of setting up the fees, setting up the logistics, and it's industry run. It'll be run by an industry nonprofit that is overseen by the state, by CDPHE. So industry gets to have agency over how it actually works, and CDPHE makes sure they're actually accomplishing the goals. So that should, within a couple of years, either mean you all are getting, I don't know how you do recycling, but either you're getting reimbursed, the county, or your residents are getting, they're not paying at all, or they're getting reimbursed for their costs. The idea is it's free for everybody in the state. And a whole bunch of regulatory work, which I could spend a lot of time on, I won't, but I'll just mention the Advanced Clean Cars 2 and Advanced Clean Trucks, 2 really important rulemakings that we got very good outcomes on. Examples of where the legislature passes stuff, but the rulemakings are where it really, that's the implementation piece. That's how we make sure the legislative language actually means something. And those are often hard fights. And we got really good outcomes that will drive the market on both those things. And a huge part of why we got good outcomes is because our members show up and testify or write letters of testimony or publish op-eds in the paper, or all of those things that end up really shaping the outcome.
Can you already claim credit for changing the market? We've got maybe the second most robust EV market in the country now, I think.
Oh, Colorado.
Uptake, yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that, but I believe it. On the cars, this is the second round. That first round basically told manufacturers they had to sell a minimum number of models and EVs in the state, because basically if you lived on the Front Range, you might have access to, but if you lived, I don't know what Pickett County was like, but generally Western Slope and Eastern Plains, you couldn't find EVs at all. And if you could, it would be a model or a couple of vehicles of 1 or 2 models. And we know the demand is there. It just, the demand has to match up to the actual vehicles that meet the needs of people who want them. And so that was driving a broad expansion in the number of models and number of vehicles available, which meant people started buying them.
And the deals you could get, because they really wanted to sell some. So I got a great deal on that.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yes, that was exactly. So thank you for helping make that work.
We don't have any car dealerships in Pickens County.
Interesting. Okay, so wherever you're going, it makes a big difference.
Charging it is another issue.
And we're working on that too,
it.
slowly. Yeah, I know you guys are. Just a few thoughts about the year ahead. Extended producer responsibility, continues to be this big process. So we are engaged there in just trying to make sure that the outcome of that, the plan and the program, actually meets the needs of local governments and actually will provide enough money to pay for recycling across the state and actually have this environmental benefit of making less friendly packaging choices less desirable to the manufacturers. There are a number of rulemakings that are either going on now or coming up that feel like Front Range rulemakings. I'm guessing if you live in the West Slope, but they have big implications here. And one example is that second one, the cumulative impacts rulemaking, which the ECMC is very close to finishing. We've been heavily involved. I don't know that we're going to get a good win there or not. It's unclear, but it's a good example of where conceptually it's focused a lot on the Front Range and drilling on the Front Range, because a lot of it's focused on emissions directly from drilling activities, but and the toxicity associated with that pollution. But all of that pollution is also, there are greenhouse gases. Ozone is a greenhouse gas. The ozone precursors are greenhouse gases. When we're seeing emissions of those precursors, we're almost always seeing emissions of other greenhouse gases. So the climate impacts are substantial everywhere in the state, because that's a major source, one of the largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the state. So it has big benefits when we pull off successes there for the Front Range and air quality, but then statewide, or the climate benefits are statewide. So a lot happening there. That microgrid roadmap is potential for the state to play a really strong leadership role in helping communities around the state get the right kind of microgrid network so they can plug into your emergency service needs and your community needs, and plugs into what the state can offer and so on. And then legislative session is probably going to be crazy again, but we know you guys have some legislative interest, and we want to be as helpful as we can on those. And I think, this will be my last slide. Just mention or reiterate that we can plug you in as much or as little as any of you want. A lot of what we do is us communicating out to you all, hey, it'd be great if somebody's interested in testifying on this thing on this day, but also you can reach out to us if there's a particular topic that you are interested in that's related to climate, and you would love to testify on legislation related to whatever that might be, or regulatory hearings, or meet with legislators. Let us know and we can plug you in. Or if you want to write an op-ed to publish in one of the papers here, or aim for the Denver Post or the Sun or something like that, we're happy to help you with that too. We can draft something that you can then adapt. You can draft it and give it to us, and we can help you fill in holes or information or whatever. So just know that we are happy to be as helpful as we can on any of those kinds of things that you would find useful. And I'll stop there. Did I miss anything?
Well, I just wanted to ask you, you know, we're trying to figure out how to appeal to the FAA to help us change some rules on a national level to allow a cleaner, greener airport operation, and to take some of the funds from our airport and use them off-site, which is currently not allowed under FAA rules. And I'm just wondering, you know, we've made some connections with people who are deeply involved in the IRA at a federal level. We're always looking for ways to reach out and to try to gain some traction, whether it might even be with our own senators or elsewhere. And I realize, I don't know if we've looped CC4C in or even reached out regarding what we're trying to do with our airport, which is the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, we presented to CC4CA the SAF program, so that's same shared legislation that we sent through to CCI. It's just all very preliminary, but we definitely made it known that there's a huge climate nexus and a lot of network.
Right. You know, the thing that I like the most, and I love to brag about, is that we're seeing these separate cells of climate action in communities. We declared our climate emergency in 2019, or not even sure what year it was, 2020? And others are doing the same, and now we're all starting to coagulate. And CC4 is a big part of that. The Regional Climate Solutions Group is becoming more powerful and more interesting all the time. And that's a huge leap, I think, in the evolution of tackling a climate problem, carbon emissions and electrification issues. It's really gratifying to see that. And CC4HCA plays such a huge role.
Thank you.
Yeah,
on that one, on the FAA one in particular, it's really valuable. One of the, I'd say, like less structured but high impact benefits of CC4CA are the meetings where like a whole bunch of our members met in a legislative committee meeting and shared either bills they were running or bills they were looking for or things they were interested in seeing if we could move. And that just means a whole bunch of folks that may have similar interests, some of whom have airports, are plugged into a conversation they might not be otherwise. The FAA itself is not an agency we have any experience with or knowledge of, but that might be an instance where if there's a key moment where a member of the delegation in Colorado is on a committee that's appropriate and useful, and we might be in a position to send a letter to or reach out to their office and say, hey, this is something that's really important to our members. And that can have an impact when the member of the delegation is hearing from the 43-member coalition. So I don't know that we're helpful on the federal agency itself because we just don't know anything about that agency, but we might be helpful on what are some of the other places that you can activate
the voices. Yeah. Well, it's interesting to contemplate. Did you comment or anything? Good?
No, 'cause I'll be going to DC in March with NACO.
Good.
To present again a resolution allowing the use of revenues earned on an airport, off airport for climate action issues.
Good.
And we're focusing right now on the sustainable aviation fuel, but it could be a solar farm or hydro or whatever, geothermal. And we'll probably, Levi's been in the loop with me on that, and a letter supporting it when I go back would be terrific, but we'd have to.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We'd have to, we're drafting whatever we want to present to NACO again in March, and with NACO's help, we're gonna get it up to the legislative level, Congress.
Terrific.
I'll keep you in the loop.
Yeah, please. Happy to help any way we can.
Thank you.
Great. Kelly.
Yeah, nice to see you, Jacob. I mean, I would say that of all the member groups that we're part of, I always have the greatest degree of confidence in CC4CA's positions that they are going to align with Picken counties, whereas some of the other groups we're members of require a more vigilant observation of their decisions. I have a higher degree of confidence always in CC4CA.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Great. And anything else? We probably need to wrap up.
I would
Get
just
you down the road.
I would just want to thank you again for all the input that you gave to me through the session. So much of that's reflected in these presentations that I could bring to you all. Some of the bill discussions, their trackers, what they're advocating for, their priority levels, all those kinds of things. And then finally point out the dredge and fill bill. I just didn't see that on your list to replace the Sackett decision. I know Greg did a bunch of work. We sent letters. We did all sorts of great things with that. So that was a huge win.
Yeah, cool. Great.
So thanks for being here.
Oh,
really
sorry
nice
I was
to
caught
meet
by
you.
surprise, but
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't even call you.
That's all right.
It happened so quickly. So
It happened very quickly.
glad you heard about it.
Hey, thanks for coming up.
He emailed me
He
in
told
2
you, oh,
minutes.
by the
Yeah.
way.
Where are
Here,
you?
where are you?
Great. Well, wonderful. Have a good time in Basalt. Say hi to our friends down there.
I will. I will pass on your greetings.
Yes.
I'll just close by saying we think about the work we're doing both from what are the policies at the state level, what are the levers at the state level we need to change or amplify, and also what are the barriers that you all are experiencing at the local level. So that are state level barriers, but they impede your ability. I mean, this thing with the FAA is a good example of a federal barrier, but at the state level especially, that's where we have the biggest impact. And if you run into, boy, here's a state rule that is making this thing harder for us to do that we want to do, or anything like that, that's another, we do a lot of our work legislatively and regulatorily is how do we get rid of barriers to local governments doing the really cutting edge, aggressive climate action work they want to do. So love to hear anytime anything comes up that we might be able to help along. Just let
Well,
us know.
that's why the FAA allowing us to use funds off-site will help airports across Colorado. So it's
Across the country.
not just a Picken County issue, so
Right.
I think
Across
that'd be
the nation.
benefit statewide, so.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you all.
We'll be in touch.
Thanks, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You may be the only CC4CA person I've actually met in person. Everyone else exists in the two-dimensional, ether. But they're all great. They're all brilliant and they're great.
We're all real.
They're real-
Nice to
And
hear.
everyone is a former local elected or former local
Right.
elected staff. It's an organization really of local governments.
Yeah, which is great.
Thanks.
No, do I just pull it out?
Oh, yeah, you just pull it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you all.
coming. Great to see you.
Yeah,
It's
likewise,
rare. Come more often, visit us.
Happily.
Come up again.
Yeah, I will.
All right. Okay, now Rye's,
Switch back?
Rye is in the room.
He is in the room, and it's my understanding that this is on your agenda now because you all had had a conversation about bringing this forward, and I think you've been briefed, and Rye will probably reaffirm that again. As far as staff goes, we can certainly help, but we can't write that.
You can help
we
on our direction.
Absolutely.
You can pull together the data at least.
Oh, that makes so much more sense. I thought you all were just reviewing the ballot for the fall. You're talking.
No, these are supports. I think from the board's perspective, you talked about either supporting some of these ballot initiatives that are out. And Kelly even mentioned earlier today, even having a conversation if you want to do something on a statewide level. So that's what this is all about.
Correct.
Okay, so are you driving this?
No, well, I can, but I mean, we've all done this before where we know all the measures. I think maybe we can decide on the scope. I think there are some statewide measures we might want to take positions on. I know that there's a bunch that I don't have enough knowledge about to even decide how I might think about it yet. And we can share input we've all heard on those, and then local measures as well, which we're all much more versed on what they're doing.
Open up my sample ballot.
And what they want to do.
I would love to hear your perspective on the statewide measures first, because I think you're probably pretty well dialed in
She
on
just
that.
said she needed more information. Do you?
On some of them. I mean, I think
even
some of them
have-
we could.
I have to have a sample ballot with all of the issues on it.
Yeah.
We've got
And we have one linked in our packet.
Yeah, there's one in the packet.
Yes.
But then do we get in doing something with the city of Aspen ballot questions? Or
Right.
Snowmass Village ballot questions?
Well, that's up for discussion,
Yeah,
I
that's
guess,
up for discussion.
I'd love to hear what everyone thinks.
I mean, you're the chair. Do you want to walk through these one by one? Do you want to
Let's
start with
let's-
local measures? Do you want to start with our measures?
I'd like to start with the state ones you were thinking about.
Okay. So I would say I don't think I have enough. G is related to property tax exemptions for veterans.
We can move on.
Some of these I feel like you'd never quite know what you're getting. You know, they could look really innocuous, and we may not have enough information to know what the impacts are. So that may be one of them. The same with
Judicial review.
the judicial review. Any of these kind of bail and criminal justice reform.
Well, let's go back to H for a second, the judicial review. Because I think that if we could get Colorado to have a standard of, what is it called? Independent Discipline Adjudicative Board, setting standards, that maybe we can start setting an example for our Supreme Court or whatever. I think it is something that's worth taking a stand on. But what?
Patty?
So this would create a board that's gonna study something, and do we get to see what they study and come out with? I mean, you know how some of these questions are, they ask you to, you think you're supporting, you know, like you just said, standard discipline adjudicative, you know, guidelines, but this is just creating a board to establish
So we need
set
to know
standards.
more. Who's on the board, who decides who's on the board, all that sort of thing.
And who appoints the board, who, I mean, I don't know.
You don't feel like there's enough information there to take a
I don't
stand on?
think the
Garfield
ballot question
commissioners-
gives you enough information to vote on it.
Supply the board.
I mean, these are all, I'm happy to walk us through the Blue Book information, which I pulled up.
Is it out yet?
We haven't received it in the mail, but it is online.
But that would take us to go through all of them in like 2 hours.
We'll have to trim it down.
That's
I
why
think
was
some we can skip.
Yeah, let's skip the ones that are
But
perhaps
on
a
this
little bit
one
more
in
indirect.
particular, it says a yes vote creates an independent adjudicative board made of citizens, lawyers, and judges to conduct judicial misconduct hearings and impose disciplinary action, and allows more information to be shared earlier with the public. A no vote means that a select panel of judges will continue to conduct judicial misconduct hearings and recommend disciplinary actions, and cases remain confidential unless public sanctions are recommended at the end of the process.
What does that mean?
Either we let
Well,
judges do it or
I
we-
take it to mean that there's people who think that the judges shouldn't be the only ones judging each other on their behavior on the bench, and that this is an opportunity for lawyers and citizens to be a part of the review committee when they feel that there's been judicial misconduct. That's the way I read it, or heard it.
Well, then the bigger question is, are we writing a resolution clarifying that?
Yeah,
or
I don't know.
I don't know where we're beginning to know where we're gonna end. And who's gonna write the reso, since staff,
For the state things, yeah, that seems a
You
little
write
bit.
Based on your direction, I understand that we can provide that information, is that right? Right, that we can write those resolutions based on your direction.
even on our
We
own
just
ballot
can't generate
questions?
them.
Right,
It
yeah.
depends on what we're talking about. The state stuff's a little different than our
That's
own
true.
stuff. So, you know, I think in the past, this board has utilized staff to provide support for particular statewide ballot measures. But for things that we're proponents of, we need to be more cautious around that.
Thank you, yes.
That'll be rely entirely on our direction. Okay, well, so for what that's worth, I would like to just get through this.
Well, are we making a decision, or we're just getting through it?
I don't feel as, well, Steve, go ahead.
Well, at this point on the state things, I'd have to do a whole lot of studying personally, which I don't want to spend time now trying to figure out what each of these means, because I haven't looked at the blue book yet. In terms of the local ones, maybe we should concentrate on the local ones today, which we're more familiar with, although some of them reading through the sample ballot, it's like, oh, I didn't know that was coming up on the ballot this year.
If I could just amend maybe what Steve offered, I do think there's some, for example, Amendment J is, you know, shall there be an amendment to the Colorado Constitution removing the ban on same-sex marriage?
That'd be an easy
I think
one.
we might be able to make a
I
decision
think
on
we
that
could
one,
agree
you
on
know?
that one.
And, you know, we might have some thoughts about the killing of mountain lions and bobcats, and that
I agree with you.
constitutional measure. So maybe we just go through, and if we say we can't make a decision, then we can decide if we want to revisit it or not
Okay, so starting with J then,
on that.
can we jump to J?
So I think,
We could certainly,
I lost it. Where is it?
yeah.
Because the other ones, I'm not.
So judicial discipline, I'm hearing we're not sure we're going to make a decision on that,
right,
not
I don't
knowing
think that, I
more.
don't think we're all there on
So
that.
I think we-
Constitutional bail,
We could support J,
okay.
yeah, and K, Kelly, you're the best one on special election, or the deadlines for,
You know, I don't know enough about this, so I would say I don't
so
think
we'll skip that one.
we're prepared to answer that today.
79.
79, a constitutional right to abortion. Shall there be a change recognizing the right to abortion and in connection therewith prohibiting the state and local government from denying, impeding, discriminating against exercise of that right, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, the main thing is being covered under health insurance plans for Colorado state and local government employees and for enrollees in state and local governmental insurance programs.
I think we could take a stand on that, because
I
everybody
think we
else.
should support it, because I didn't know that if you had health insurance through state and local government as a state and local government employee, if you needed abortion, it wasn't covered.
Steve,
Maybe it depends on
are
your
you okay
government.
at that?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that one to support that.
Okay, moving right along, I think we're good there.
So where are we, Jay?
You
At
want to take over
79?
here?
Sorry?
Do you want to?
Oh, well,
I can
That
turn
was
it back
I'll
over
let
to
you,
you.
I want you to share your wisdom about
That was
this.
Oh,
a-
I will, but I'm happy
Yeah.
to let you.
So let's go to
take over.
80. I just want to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Establishing the right to school choice for children in kindergarten through 12th. In connection with declaring that school choice includes neighborhood charter, private schools, homeschooling, open enrollment options, future innovations. I don't know enough about that.
Is that
It
a
sounds
voucher
great.
system?
It doesn't
But
say
I don't-
voucher in there at all.
It doesn't say vouchers, but
Does
I
it
don't
sound
know
like that's
enough
what it
about
is?
it
Yeah.
to take a position.
Okay, so let's skip that
move
one.
on. Proposition JJ, without raising taxes, may the state keep and
Well,
spend
let
all
me
sports
see.
betting tax
We
revenue.
want to fund water
yes,
conservation.
I'm in favor of JJ. I hope you guys are.
Yes.
For water conservation.
And I think I'm kind of supporting KK too.
Steve, what's your?
JJ, I would say yes.
We can support
You would
that.
say yes, Steve?
Yeah.
Good.
So KK, 39 million additional taxes to fund mental health services for military veterans, at-risk youth, school safety, gun violence prevention, support services for victims of domestic violence, other violent crimes, but authorizing a tax on gun dealers, gun manufacturers, and ammunition vendors, at the rate of 6.5% of the net taxable sales. For sale of any gun precursor part, ammunition, with the state keeping and spending all the new tax revenue as a voter-approved revenue change. I would be in favor of that.
Me too.
Me too.
Yeah, I wonder why this question is only
KK.
caps.
Yeah,
Because it's
interesting.
a Tabor question.
Oh, interesting.
So the one above that isn't?
No,
One above it says without raising taxes.
Okay, so this one,
This one
okay,
says
so
shall
this is
state
because it's
taxes be
increasing, so it's in bold. I didn't know that
So we're
that made a
taxing gun
difference in
sales.
the font.
Okay. If
One
that-
is
if we're
called a
all-
ballot question and the other is called a ballot issue.
I know, I'm like, okay,
we're learning
but they're
this.
all
crazy.
propositions and they're statutory, but
Okay, let's go to Proposition 127.
Did we get KK? Is that?
I think we have a
Yes.
yes
Okay.
on that, yep.
I'm keeping track too.
Should there be a change to Colorado revised statutes concerning a prohibition on the hunting of mountain lions, lynx, bobcats, connection therewith prohibiting the intentional killing, wounding, pursuing, and trapping or discharging or releasing of a deadly weapon at a mountain lion, lynx, or bobcat, creating 8 exceptions to this prohibition, including for the protection of human life, property, and livestock, establishing a violation of this prohibition as a Class 1 misdemeanor, and increasing fines and limiting wildlife license privileges for persons convicted of this crime. A Class 1 misdemeanor is pretty, that's a slap on the wrist, isn't it? Isn't that like the minimal? Is that a $15 fine? What does that mean?
I don't know what the fine structure is for that, but it would change law with regard to your ability to obtain a license to hunt a mountain lion.
Right, that's probably
This
the,
is gonna wreak havoc for CPW.
So you're saying we
It'll be a
should not support
disaster for
this?
CPW. It's,
We should not support this.
I do not personally support it in any way, shape, or form.
okay,
It-
I wanted to have that conversation.
I
Thank
think
you.
there's probably about 50 counties in the state that are adamantly opposed to this because they're in rural areas of the state with where there's livestock operations and
Yeah.
these kind of decisions, at least it's a statutory one. It's not a constitutional change, but
Yeah.
those kind of decisions, I think, should be made by the parks and wildlife officials who are experts in it and not being made by the emotional, appealing to the emotions of the voters of the state who know nothing about it, basically.
I completely agree. That was the problem with the wolf vote.
Right.
I don't want
That
them
was-
shooting lynx. My God.
Well, you don't have to.
Sorry, a lynx
Luckily, we
is a
don't-
federally
It's-
endangered species.
part of this
You're not
is
allowed
a-
to
But
kill a
it
lynx.
it says in here,
Do you think they should be a managed
She's a lynx.
species or
Because
not?
it's a-
I don't think we have a lot of lion hunting in
well, this
Dixon
reverse
County.
says you can't.
We have
but
plenty of lion
you can't
hunting
shoot
here,
one
including
anyway.
Johnny Nislanik right on my road.
I know,
Really?
so.
Killed a lion, yes.
And they increased the number of mountain lion permits.
And then
in our-
posts it on the, well, they increased mountain lion units. We're in a special management unit right here because of interactions between humans and lions. So they increased the harvest cap here it's from Vale to Parachute and up to Woody Creek. Sort of that area is a special management unit. So CPW increased the allowed take in this area, but that was a few years ago. I don't know if it's still
I wonder if they
increased.
even know how many lions exist here.
Well, there's 4,000 on the Front Range,
4,000.
and there's a lot more on the west slope.
Okay, I don't think we're all going to agree on this, but maybe I don't know. I think I would. I have a problem with it because I think we're reducing the gene pool pretty dramatically. I'm not sure lions are thriving. So
Lions are thriving in this state.
are they really?
I saw the whole CPW meeting on this just
Okay.
2 weeks
So I think
ago.
I appreciate.
thriving.
I would defer to CPW as well. Can we move to Proposition
no.
128?
So is that,
I think.
I think we're a no.
Or either a no, or I would just say not, I wouldn't take a position is what my position would be. I don't want to take a position on that.
okay,
I would, I mean, I think we should take a no position, because I think in particular our electorate will pay attention to this question and could have a meaningful impact in the statewide vote numbers.
Interesting. I think, well, our population will probably be voting yes.
That's exactly why
Oh.
I'm suggesting
That
that
we
if we have
offer no.
if we don't think it's a good idea, then we should tell our voters that we don't think it's a good idea.
I'm not comfortable.
I think most of the western slope counties are
They'll probably be
opposed.
no's. Yeah. Steve,
I'm opposed to that. I think
you think
I
we
would
should-
support
opposing it as a board.
opposing it as a board.
Yeah, I don't think I can, sorry.
Okay.
Proposition 129,
What about 128?
oh, did I skip over something? This is concerning parole eligibility for an offender convicted of certain crimes and in connection therewith requiring an offender who is convicted of second-degree murder, first-degree assault, class 2 felony kidnapping, sexual assault, first-degree arson, first-degree burglary, or aggravated robbery committed on or after January 25 to serve 85% of the sentence imposed before being eligible for parole, and requiring an offender convicted of any such crime committed after the 25 January, who was previously convicted of any 2 crimes of violence, not just those crimes enumerated in this measure, to serve the full sentence imposed before beginning to serve parole. This is the first time I've contemplated this. My concern is that if we're going to make a rule like that, do we even need a parole board? Like, why would we have a parole system?
Well, because they still have to go, they'll still be on parole
My daughter's house.
if they've served 85% of their sentence. They're still out early. They're still on parole. But I don't have an opinion on this one.
I don't either. I don't feel like I know
No
enough.
opinion. It seems like they're trying to solve a problem. I'm not sure it solves the problem. It may just make things more difficult for law enforcement, for all I know, or the judicial system or sentencing system. Okay, we're moving on then. Steve?
Yeah, I feel like there are implications and mandatory sentencing requirements like this that I don't fully understand.
Right.
Me too.
It makes me, yeah,
I
nervous.
think
about
I'd want to consult with the district attorney's
Yeah.
office about that to get
Yeah,
their
I want to
take.
talk to attorneys about it first.
Yeah.
Okay, Proposition 129, here we go. A new veterinary professional association in connection with establishing qualifications including master's degree in veterinary clinical care or equivalent as determined by the State Board of Veterinary Medicine to be a veterinary professional associate, requiring registration with the state board, allowing a registered veterinary professional associate to practice veterinary medicine under the supervision of a licensed veterinarian, making it a misdemeanor to practice as a veterinary professional without an active registration. So this is requiring veterinary assistants to be registered.
It's actually setting up a program where they get an associate's degree, like a 2-year
Oh, got
college
it.
associate's degree, and they can practice being certain things. They have to be in touch with another vet, but they're not completely independent. It's like a PA, but for animals.
It's like a PA.
And it's to address the lack of vets in rural areas in the state.
So you think it's a positive thing?
There's no program yet set up for it, but there aren't any associate programs for veterinary medicine yet. But, I'm going to be voting for it because we do have a vet shortage.
I will say I had a conversation about this with staff at the animal shelter over the weekend, and the veterinary nurse I spoke with is very much against this and sharing her experience even with
vet tech?
Vet tech, is that it? I don't know what you call veterinary.
Because she thought it would
Professionals.
bring in people with less knowledge into her field.
Yes, and inexperienced and not good for the animals.
Vet techs are a certified program,
Right, yeah.
not an associate
You have to have
degree.
a license
They
to
go
do
to,
Right. Yeah.
so it's not a veterinarian, it's a vet tech, which is like a physician's assistant, except they go through a certification, not through a college
Right, so
associate
the
degree.
info that I was given was just, this is like way, not rigorous enough.
There's no program
Training.
set up yet.
Not
Well,
enough training.
but what they're presenting is not, wouldn't be sufficient to protect the health
So it's
of.
possible we could be
our
introducing a lot of
animals.
low-quality veterinarians into the.
No, they're still managed by a vet. They don't
Exactly.
just to go out and.
They have to have
on
a
their own.
relationship with that.
Yeah, I don't think that the analogy with it being a PA is quite
Well,
the
PA,
same.
PA,
Yeah,
you
less
have
rigorous
more
than that.
education.
Okay, do we know enough about this to take a position?
I do think that she lives in an area where there's lots of vets.
Well, I just, maybe
like-
we would just want to
We don't have to take a
table
stand
this
on
and see if the animal shelter has a position for us, because that is sort
That'd
of,
be
we
good.
do
I'd
have
love to
a,
get
we
there.
do have an umbrella of influence
We
that's
do.
relative to
I'd like to
this.
ask my
There
vet.
are a lot of vets in this valley. as
Yeah,
compared to
and
other
I think
places.
one of the concerns is if you're a vet tech now with a certified program, this new program would put that veterinary assistant a step above you.
Really?
Because they have a 2-year associate degree in this field versus a technical program. I worked for a vet before I chose to go to nursing school because German Shepherds and I did not get along. Not that all patients
ones
got
that talk
along
back?
either, but yeah.
So I think are we not taking a position or?
I don't
I
think
would-
we are. Doesn't
Okay.
sound like
All
we're
right,
ready to.
so we're gonna move on, 1:30.
Thanks,
Will there be
Kelly,
a
for
change to
that.
the Colorado Revised Statutes concerning state funding for peace officer training and support in connection therewith, directing the legislature to appropriate $350 million to the Peace Officer Training and Support Fund for municipal and county law enforcement agencies to hire and retain peace officers, allowing the fund to be used for pay, bonuses, initial and continuing education, training, and a death benefit for a peace officer, police, fire, and first responder killed in the line of duty, and requiring the funding to supplement existing appropriations.
Do we know what the existing appropriations are?
I'd like to know what our
No,
sheriff
but I'm
thinks of
very
this.
uncomfortable with expressly requiring the legislature to dedicate that
350?
specific funding, with, outside of the budget context.
What do you mean?
Where's it coming from?
We're telling them
Well,
to spend
it's,
the money.
there's no appropriate, there's no revenue source generated for
an
this, so
unfunded
it's just
mandate
taking money
in reverse.
from the legislature and saying
yes,
they're
but
going
it's-
to
even though it's a
pay
good
for
cause.
this at expense of every other thing that the legislature
That's
has
because they
to
probably
balance
couldn't
the
be
budget
passed
for.
Circumventing
if they
is what
asked.
we're
If
doing.
they tried
Because
to
they
do
don't know where
Yeah,
the
but-
money's coming
It's,
from.
it's us handing up an unfunded mandate. Usually they come the other way.
I don't think it's the best way to handle a state
Okay,
budget.
I think that we don't have an
Personally.
agreement here.
I wouldn't support this. This is something the state legislature could
Right.
Okay.
pass a
All
bill
right, we're gonna let-
to
we'll move
create
on.
this and have the discussion about the fiscal node and everything
Yeah.
in the
Do we want to
process.
come out as a no then, or do we
I'm
want
just
to?
We
gonna-
could
I
just
just
be
don't
neutral.
support.
We'll be
and
neutral, okay.
Have a.
I support the
position.
cause, I just don't support
Right,
how
they
they're
all sound
trying to
so.
get
Yeah,
there.
of course, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna keep moving. Everyone comfortable? Only one more before we get to
The
county.
next one is ranked voting.
Ranked choice voting.
I don't, city
Okay.
tried that. Didn't they?
You want me to read it?
Anybody remember that when the city tried
Yeah.
that?
There'd be a change to the Colorado
know a
Revised
lot about
Statutes
ranked
creating
choice
new election processes for certain federal and state offices in connection therewith, creating a new all-candidate primary election for U.S. Senate, U.S. House, Governor, Attorney General, Secretary of the State Treasurer, CU Board of Regents, State Board of Education, Colorado State Legislature, allowing voters to vote for any one candidate per office, regardless of the voters or candidate's political party, providing that the 4 candidates for each office who receive the most votes advance to the general election, and in the general, allowing voters to rank candidates for each office on their ballot, adopting a process for how ranked votes are tallied and determining the winner to be a candidate with the highest number of votes in the final tally.
Isn't that what we have in our primary? Here in Pickett County?
Ranking?
Picken, but not state.
No, that's what I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
Pickett.
So
That's what
We
have in
don't
Pickett.
rank, we don't have a
by
ranked
this.
choice system, but we
So
do
just
have
some
a
people-
all
Wait,
candidate
I can't hear
An
the
all
conversation.
candidate primary and the top 2 vote getters go on, even if they're both Democrats.
I mean,
That's for Pickett County,
Okay,
That's what I
hold on,
said,
let's
Pickett
keep-
County.
just for the BOCC and our 4 offices.
Okay,
that we
Kelly, what
elect.
were you gonna say about this?
so
Yeah, not for
ideally, these
president.
would have been separated out. I think that there are 2 different questions piled into one. I'm probably going to give serious consideration to supporting this because both of these methods, what you call a jungle primary, where you have just the top candidates are the ones that move on regardless of political affiliation, and ranked choice voting tend to produce less extreme elected officials.
Right.
So it dilutes the influence of party politics. Some of the argument against this is that, in particular, a jungle primary, you tend to get the wealthiest
We get that anyway, but.
folks to run. You know, I don't think that's the only factor in elections is how much money people raise. So to me, I really do think that these are just the direction that we should all be heading everywhere in our country if we want to have less extreme folks in office.
I agree with that. Steve?
So the other day, the Club 20 Board of Directors voted to oppose this.
Enough reason for
There
me
we
to
go.
support it.
Just for your information. Now, I have been observing the ranked choice voting in the state of Alaska, and it's working very well there.
Maine too.
And I like the idea of it. I would support this.
Now, there are some details about ranked choice voting. The reason it got a bad criticism in Aspen is because they didn't sort of think through all of the details of how the counts accumulate. But those are things that can be worked out.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway.
Okay, I'm gonna, sounds like we're in favor. Patty has recused herself, only because she's on a phone call. I'm gonna keep us moving.
I will flag, like, I think, you know, not everybody agrees with my perspective. You know, like, I know CCAT is gonna have a conversation about this, and they may oppose it. But this is my personal opinion.
Patty,
It's interesting that Club
ranked
20
choice
opposes
voting.
it.
Sorry, I've got a major catastrophe going on, but
Sorry.
I think
Ranked
it's,
choice voting.
What's interesting that Club 20 opposes it because they're going to end up with 2 Republicans on every ballot if they have this.
Yeah.
So why would they oppose it? That
No,
seems
there
really
would
weird to
be
me.
4 people that would advance.
They're going to end up with 4 Republicans. I mean,
then
you know.
why would we support it if they could end up with 4 Republicans on the ballot?
Well, just in general, as
Or
a,
4 of any party on the ballot. I'm not going to just specify it as Republicans, but would it be okay if there were 4 Democrats? No.
well, hell yes. Just kidding.
I'm not going there.
I'm just kidding.
So, do we want to move, approve this or not? For or against, gang?
Well,
I'm not, I mean, I think there's a lot to think about through this.
I do
so
too. I don't think I'm
you
ready.
know,
Okay, we're not
it's
ready yet.
okay if
Okay.
We
don't
need
take
a couple of years of education of the public about
Yeah. I will
what it is
probably vote
before
for it.
it reaches prime time and has a chance of, I don't think it has a chance of passing this year.
I'm going to vote for
Because
it.
people don't understand it and they're gonna vote
Right.
against it.
Pitkin County ballot issue 1A. This looks familiar.
I think we could probably support that.
I think we should oppose this definitely.
Okay. I don't think we, sounds
Too
like we
many
can
words
agree
there.
on this. I don't think we can agree on this. Moving right along. Do you want to go back and revisit this?
No. I'm up.
You're a,
Totally.
you're a
10
yes.
thumbs
Skip
up.
some. I feel like in the blue book,
I
there's a
think
few more that.
A, B, and C are pretty straightforward.
We've been tracking.
No,
So
that's
we're gonna come out in favor.
Should we do one resolution for A, B, and C? Can we do that?
We can do
Can
that.
we do that, Rye? Can we do a resolution for 3 things in one resolution?
Housing, solid waste center bonds,
Yes.
got it. And 1C.
And then 200, I assume we're going to oppose?
I am.
I am.
I'm fine with that.
Well, I was wondering if, I was thinking about that this morning, if
Well,
we
actually, it
should
is-
take a no position, like, I mean,
Yeah.
That's what
just
oppose
not
is.
take a position.
Yeah.
I think that's right,
And
smarter.
let the voters decide it themselves without us trying to influence against voting for something that some of our citizens are for, obviously.
Yes, and also it's saying, no, we don't want you to have a voice. If we take a position altogether against this, then we are doing what they say we're doing, which is taking away their voice.
Okay, so we can have no position, that's fine
So I
with me.
think just
What do you think, Patty?
supporting, I
Well,
think
ACRA
supporting us.
ACRA passed resolutions today saying, well, they're cleaning up the language for the resolutions, but the ACRA Board of Directors passed 2 resolutions today. One supporting 1C and one opposing 200.
Yes, but they're not in direct
I'm
opposition.
just letting you know.
Yeah. I would hope lots of people do, but I'm not sure we should. I think Steve has a really good point there.
Okay, well, we don't have, that sounds like the direction it's going, so we're just not gonna take a position on that one.
Well, we could talk about it some more. It's pretty important.
I just want to make sure
What do
we
you
get
think, Kelly?
out of here in time.
I have always thought that neither of these things should go to the home rule
Right.
charter amendment.
But they are, so.
But they are, and so I'm happy to support ours and not take a position on 200.
I think
That's
it's
most
probably
consistent
cleaner
with
if we don't take a
where I'm at.
position.
Yeah, it's the
Voters
safest.
can,
Okay.
I
can
agree.
figure that
I'm
one out
gonna
on their own,
take us-
because we do, at the end of the day, we do have smart voters in Pickens County. I'm putting my trust and my faith in them.
Okay, municipal ballot measures. Do we want to weigh in on the city ballot measures and Snowmass?
I think so.
Extension of real estate transfer tax.
I cannot not say yes to this
Yeah,
one.
we have to say yes to
Not
that.
say, cannot not say yes. That means
We
you
have to say yes to that because
Okay,
we're
that's a yes.
supporting real estate transfer tax at
On
the
the state level, right.
And we like what it does in Aspen. We're definitely,
And I think the same on the other one on issue 2B.
This is this extension of existing 0.45% sales tax, affordable housing and daycare. I think we have been advocates for that, and
Yep.
so I think we're yeses, okay. City of Aspen, 2C, imposition of a use tax on motor vehicles. I have not read this
I'm
one
reading
yet.
it now.
I'm not totally sure.
I'm not
So they're,
exactly
they're
sure what this-
changing it from a sales tax to a use tax and lowering the rate. Is what I think
If the city put this forward.
Why would they want to change it from a sales to a use tax? Do
It
they
may
have-
give them more flexibility in how they
That's what I
spend
was
it.
thinking. Does it give them more? Rich, do you have any idea?
I do not. I know that in the past, that's been one of the trade-offs. You
Turn your mic
generate
on.
additional
Your mic.
revenue.
Turn your mic.
I do not specifically in this case, but I do know that there's been others that I've seen in my lifetime where they'll trade those out
Because,
they can actually generate those additional revenues. I know the one that off of a population coming in, sales tax versus a property tax. I've seen those before. This is a use tax, so I'm not sure that you gain much there, but I'm not sure the rationale behind it.
Do we want to be neutral? Or
I
do you wanna
guess
support?
that when it was a sales tax, it went into the general sales tax fund. It wasn't specifically allocated for road and bridge, the way I'm reading it. And if it goes to a use tax, they can specifically allocate it for road and bridge. And so I think that's the
Maybe
thinking,
that's
if I'm
the
not
theory behind it.
mistaken.
Could be.
I haven't read it that carefully, but.
Yeah.
And transit-related infrastructure. So what they're doing is they're taking it out of their sales tax fund and putting it specifically for transit and road and bridge. And
Okay, so do we know enough to be positive support?
I'm just assuming that's what it's for. I don't really
Right.
know.
Maybe we don't know enough about that yet.
That's the
Can
way
we
I
just,
read it.
can we direct staff to ask the city to explain this to us?
Sure.
That'd be great.
that okay?
Thank you. Thanks, Rich.
Just a memo
Good
from them or
suggestion,
something?
Kelly. Snowmass Village ballot question, approve workforce housing project spending limit. Without increasing taxes, can the town of Snowmass be authorized to take actions necessary to construct a new workforce housing project consisting of up to 79 units, 118 bedrooms located uphill of the town hall in the draw site, estimated project cost of $86 million to be paid for with a tourism tax revenues authorized for workforce housing, rental income and potential grant funds, and other public and private contributions.
I think we have to support it.
I would
Yeah,
support
I would
that.
support that.
Do you know why they have to go to the voters on this?
Because right now, I think they're using this money for, I don't know.
Is this the one that was so opposed by the condos underneath it? Is that the problem that?
No.
That's
That was the
That's a
one
different
up, no, this one is right behind City Hall.
I think Clint mentioned that they have to do this as just part of their.
Oh, because it exceeds a certain amount of dollars.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
what it
right.
was. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So we have support?
I think so.
Okay.
Wait a minute, let me just clarify. So they're gonna use 86 million paid for with tourism tax revenues. And I wanna make sure they're not taking money out of one pot, the tourism, that they're already using it with their chamber or whatever, and putting it into housing. But it sounds like there's a percentage of the monies raised from the tourism tax revenues that are authorized for workforce housing. Is that what that? So it's just saying you can take this amount of money from the tourism tax revenues that are already authorized for workforce housing. So it's just supporting that. Yeah.
Steve?
I don't agree with the draw as a site because it's built on nothing but shale.
That's
and
my
there's-
entire neighborhood is built on.
It's
That's where Greg lives.
it's not, they've already had that problem with the housing
All
they
north
built
side of
further.
Snowmass, right?
Well, they've already had the
Mango shale.
problem and the whole mountain slid down onto the road and into the brush
Tourism
creek.
tax revenues
So
authorized for
I don't
workhouse.
think it's a wise choice of putting that many units up a draw it's literally shale.
City Hall will
Well, I'm
hold
not
them,
an
stop
engineer,
them.
so I'm not gonna try and
Well,
judge.
I
where
happen
they
to
go.
have been married to a geologist, and we happen to have lived in Snowmass for a short time. And he repeatedly told me they should never put that housing where they already put it, because it's on, that whole mountain is
Well,
shale.
every time I look at Laura's house when I drive by, I'm afraid it's gonna go sliding down the hill.
She'll have that great pasture as her front yard for the
They all are
dogs.
slowly sliding down.
Okay.
Okay, so is that a yes?
I think it's a yes on
I think it's
Snowmass.
a yes.
Okay, it's a yes.
Defer
Okay,
to
and that's it. That's all we've
Oh,
got.
no, we have to do all the judges now, Greg.
Oh.
Yeah, right. No, thank you.
11, I have 11, is that what you have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 10, with an explanation on one before you support it. I have J, who wrote these down?
I did.
Okay, J, 79, JJ, KK.
What about 80? Did we not decide on 80?
We didn't decide on.
Oh, okay, my bad, so then we agree then.
Okay.
The only one I didn't get was when I was out of the room, and I think you guys, that would have been,
Ranked choice voting?
Yeah, that was a ranked choice you were out on.
And 80 was a, did we say no on 80 or
80,
nothing?
that was 80
80,
then.
you didn't take a
80
position.
was, looks like a charter school.
We weren't sure whether or not it meant vouchers, so we didn't take
Vouchers.
a
Right.
position.
Why does it say Democratic instead of Democrat next to the Democrat? It seems
Because
weird
Which
to
is the
me.
Democratic
it is the
candidate.
Democratic Party.
And the
I mean, the
Republican
Not
Democrat-
the Democrat
Party.
Party.
It's
Republicans
aspirational.
will say Democrat all the time, and it's a dig at the Democratic Party every time. They're using that as a meme word, kind of.
I didn't
So what did
catch
we
that.
decide to do on 128?
So it is the Democratic Party, not the Democrat Party.
What did we
But
decide?
if you're a Republican, you're a Republican. If you're a Democrat, you're a Democrat. You wouldn't
We,
put
didn't
IC
take a
on
position.
describing a person. It's an adjective.
Okay, this is not English class, children.
Not doing
This
grammar
is-
vote
Okay.
ballot here.
So what did you guys decide
We
on
didn't,
128?
we didn't take a position on
you.
128, having not clear ideas about the ramifications of mandatory sentencing.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's a tough.
Are we good?
It's a tough mayoral vote for
Let's keep
people in
moving.
Snowmass. God.
I know, really.
Let's keep moving. We've got
So
future
can you vote for
agendas. Do we want to, Rich, do you want to talk about future agendas?
Yes, let me change my screen here.
We're trying to get
We
Kelly
have a
out of
big
here.
change for you.
Well, we still have exec too,
I know,
don't forget.
yeah.
We still have exec. We've got open discussion and exec after this. Nothing
Okay,
else
s-
is done.
Mr. Chair, so we got about 3 items here. One of them is saving the date for December 7th is the Picken County Holiday
December?
Party.
Holiday party.
The holiday party,
I don't know
December
if they
Oh,
can-
I'm
7th.
putting that
I
out.
don't know what I'm
thought-
doing
We're already into
tomorrow.
December.
This is out early for y'all, December 7th.
December.
More
details to
Tax
come.
law.
Oh,
Nope, it's just saving a date.
So I actually knew that ahead of time because I wanted to make sure that I wanted to sing in the Messiah. Now, the following Saturday, which is when Charlotte wanted to have the party,
Just bring 'em all
Floral
over to the
Society
party.
is singing at Tacaw the following Saturday, the 14th.
We should have just moved
So
our party
Charlotte
to
and I
your
had
singing.
these
So we
emails
should have
going
done
back and
be way
forth.
better.
Can we have the
So-
party at the, where are they singing?
Well, that one is at
Oh,
Tacaw.
So we could
There's
just go down there and
Harris
save a lot of
Concert
rent.
Hall, Tacaw, and then St. Stephen's Church
Fun
in
place for a party.
Glenwood.
It would be. Let's just move our thing to Taka and don't tell them.
Tacaw would
that's
be a
good.
great place to have a party.
I will suggest that.
I couldn't go last year because
Yeah,
it was in
Charlotte
Aspen.
could
It
just
was a
save
damn
herself a
blizzard.
lot.
That's
of
because there was a
bother.
blizzard. I had to drive
Fun.
down, like pick up grandkids and drive back with it.
I didn't. I stayed home. So did you, right?
Remember that?
Okay, here's a
Fun party,
logistics.
though.
Okay, what's next?
A logistics one. John, Greg, Steve Kelly will be attending the annual Basalt Chamber meeting at RMI on October 1st.
That's a meeting day,
I
right?
made,
That is a meeting scheduled, and that's scheduled from 8:30 to 11. But there's a time for our meeting set up as an exec at 10. It's a placeholder. Whether we have anything or not, we don't know. But there's discussion regarding the X Games that begins at 11:15.
Oh, that's gonna be a big discussion.
So the River Park Center second floor conference room is reserved for staff and commissioners to attend this meeting joint remotely.
Oh, I see.
So they're setting up a
Going to
room.
Basalt, so I have to go to
And
Basalt for my own meeting.
I got an
No, we'll have
agenda
it here.
from Chris Matera, and it said
They can
10:30 is
join
when
from
their
the Basalt
adjourn
offices.
time.
Oh, okay. So you may
Instead
not
of
have that.
11, so
Okay.
maybe they, if it runs over a little bit, but I think
Okay.
if we started something at 11, there'd be plenty of time to get
Yeah, I
Yep.
didn't
from
accept
RMI
that
over
because I
to the
thought it
River
was a
Center.
She just
conflict.
made placeholders, so I'm not sure I'm gonna do it yet either,
leave
but we
whenever I
can.
need to.
we
Well, I'm
can
gonna be
have-
here. Will you just
Yeah,
tell me what
Patty will be
time?
here, and I'll probably be here.
You
but-
aren't going to go to that? Because I think we had you down as possibly going, so.
Yeah.
But it's just a
If Steve-
placeholder.
If Francie and Steve wanna go,
I could go.
or you're down there.
I could
so
go, and then
whoever
I
wants
could
to
just
go-
come up for the afternoon meetings.
Right.
Okay, well,
So maybe
we're
3 of
actually
them.
posting it, so if y'all decide, there will be a room set up. If you don't think you have enough time to get back up Valley,
That
you
was my
could do
concern,
that there.
yeah. I
Where we
think I
can't
ought to
talk
be
or
here.
see or hear
Okay.
on those computers at the Basalt offices.
Okay,
When
all
you're
right.
there,
And then
it's
the,
always
I've-
What else you got,
terrible.
Rich?
Always
I've got,
like, God, this is terrible, you can't
but
hear
this-
me. I go,
hopefully it'll be
Okay,
on.
hey, we're gonna try to get out of here on time.
That's from this computer, not
Focus on Rich, he has something to say.
okay, the last item I do have is Eagle County's interested in meeting with y'all.
It actually says 10:45 is the.
Sorry, we're starting to lose it here.
Not
Focus,
10:30.
people. Okay, Rich,
We
you
have
have the
15
floor.
minutes to get
Okay,
over there.
well,
for
you may want to
11.
use that
Over there.
room then. Okay, Eagle County's interested in meeting with y'all. Charlotte and Rhea, I guess, are working on the details. They may come over to Elgibel or could do it at their Eagle County building, or it looks like they could come up here as
What
well.
do they
So
wanna meet with us about?
I don't know.
If they
Just
come up
they
here and
just
we
want to
offer
get
to take
together.
them to
Sounds
lunch,
like
is that a
there's
better
We
no
meet
items.
with them once a year on ski day, and we've done that, but so
Okay.
they must have a
We'll
specific,
find out, I can talk
Well,
to
that's
the-
just recreational, right?
we talk, well, you
We
may
can-
have just recreated, I talked to them about
Why don't we reach
issues,
out,
but
I think it's a great idea.
Me too. I like
Why
it.
don't we reach out to Jeffrey and invite him to join, since,
or have it in January.
Well, that would be after
and then
Kathy's
find out,
outgoing.
I guess we should find out why. The question we had was why.
Okay,
We
why
like
me?
them, but why?
I mean, there are things the J. Arbany property.
They have things to
the
talk about,
Tree
clearly,
farm,
so let's do
Right
it.
of first refusal.
SAF,
There's
we're
SAF,
partnering
yeah,
with
there's a
SAF.
lot, we've got a lot of
That
things.
could be some,
What was
I
the
don't
day
think
that was on?
they're looking
Yeah,
at
we'll take them
November.
out to lunch. It'll be great. It's friendly.
I figure if we can get them to come here, we
Having
buy
lunch
them
now?
lunch.
Well, that's what we were just talking about.
Why don't we
We've got
take
5
them to lunch
conversations
here?
going on
If
right
they
now.
come to Aspen, we'll buy them lunch. How's
So
that?
what's
Okay.
new?
That just saves us a trip. It
All
makes
right.
them, then they've got to work for it.
What dates did Charlotte have?
They're just
Eagle
looking
County.
in November, so there's no specific
Sometime,
date.
okay, we don't have a date yet, okay.
Just
After
sometime
the
in
election.
November,
So,
after budget.
so you all know,
After
I had
election.
lunch with Mike Sampson the other day, and we had a very nice, pleasant conversation.
Nice.
Talked about
Good.
lots
That's
of
great.
good issues. So
That's
And
good.
Greg, you mentioned who?
I'm trying
you
to
wanted
build
invite who?
bridges.
I like my
Jeffrey
meetings
Woodward.
with John
Oh.
Martin.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you what,
They're all
if one of
social.
the women in this board had gone to that, it might have been a different conversation. We can't get him to come to our joint meetings.
I get along fine with
Tom,
Mike.
Tom and,
Would never vote for him.
Tom and,
well, Tom and John are very friendly when we meet with them.
Those are all the items I have.
okay, that's
Mr.
it for
Chair.
future. Then let's keep moving.
No, we have another one,
on
sorry.
Future, oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we just decided that we're gonna do a, hiring process for county attorney on the 21st and 22nd.
Oh, okay.
And I think that, we have a
I
budget meeting
wanted to
that
make
morning.
sure Melissa was,
So, you know.
I guess that's, if we can't
Budget? We
get
have to do
candidates to
budget
show up.
again?
I wasn't sure that was locked in yet. We chose the
Okay.
21st and 22nd.
Okay.
Monday and then Tuesday morning.
Oh, I thought it was locked in.
I think we locked it in thinking, hey, that's a great date for all of us.
But yeah, Connie has 2 hours of budget on at 10.
So we may need to just do it a little bit earlier. We should squeeze it in.
Well, we could start at 8:30 and do one, and then in the afternoon, do another.
We'll move budget back half
So
an
I don't
hour.
know how familiar you are
Your
with
budget
6
back.
hours of budget in one day, but
We've done that. You can tell her to talk double speed and we'll make it work.
So Melissa's aware of these dates? She
Yeah.
was in the meeting, so
Yep.
she was, okay, all right. I'll just circle back with her.
That'd be great, because I wasn't 100% sure
but we
that
haven't
we should.
confirmed it with the applicants to know if
Yeah,
they
right,
can
we
be
also
here
have to-
yet.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. And we've got time. That's
yeah.
October 21st.
And I think we'd have time in the afternoon because the annual review of airport rates and charges doesn't take 45 minutes. I
No.
don't think.
It
You,
might
Dan?
this year.
Okay, thank you for that.
45
It'll
Thanks,
take
Kelly, for
60.
that reminder.
60 minutes.
Okay,
Nothing to say
open
about
discussion. Do we want to get open
Have a few.
discussion? Any other open?
There is,
Patty?
I do have an
Oh,
open
Rich,
discussion for
Patty,
you.
then Rich.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I have a couple open discussion. I just got an email this morning from Colorado Wild Public Lands. They are doing an event on October 9th. It's a panel discussion on how environmental and public lands advocates can position themselves in light of changing administration and recent Supreme Court decisions. They're gonna talk about the feds, how the approach the feds are taking on NEPA, and what we might be able to do to adapt to that. It's a public event. It'll be streamed so people can attend remotely. They're asking for Pickens County to be a sponsor in some small amount. I don't have any amounts. Colorado Sun is contributing a small amount of money. They just kind of want their name involved with this event. I didn't know if the board would like for me to reach back out to Annie at Colorado Wild Public Lands and see if she has more information on, it might be $250 or $100 or something. don't think
I
it's
would support
quite that.
sponsoring that.
Okay, so I'll find out about dollars.
We have to figure out the amount.
Is the board
Right.
okay with that?
I'm okay with it. Are you okay with it?
It's a public education and an opportunity us to
Francie,
really
are you
learn
okay
about
with
what
that?
changes
Yeah.
in NEPA.
Okay, I just want to
Is
look
that
at my.
okay then? Okay,
Yes,
the
that's
other
fine.
issue is, I don't know if anybody else received an email from a gentleman about the parking at the airport. Feels that, people are parking in the airport parking lot for extended periods of time, because it's cheaper than parking in the city. They're leaving their cars for sometimes 30 or 60 days. And sometimes people are saying, oh, I lost my parking ticket, and the fees are much less than paying
In
for
60
the
days,
parking.
yeah.
So, I've talked with Dan and thought we might want to bring it back to the board for some agenda time for a work session to find out what options, because we have some new changes going on at the airport with parking and what we may be able to do about tracking license plates or something to see if people are using that parking for valid issues. We tried to talk about scanning boarding passes in the past, but that wasn't an opportunity or an option we had in the past. The other is making sure that maybe people who work at the airport who are parking there because they can, are parking there and maybe not working. So we don't know what all the complexities are at this point.
Yeah, if I may, we are meeting, we've got a short list for RFPs that went out to manage parking at the airport, Buttermilk, and also the HHS parking. And we're gonna start finalizing that, and I would maybe suggest as part of all of that, we just do a comprehensive look at it and see. This isn't the first we've heard about using that.
All right, just so I can get back to this gentleman and
Yeah.
tell him we're looking at it.
Okay.
Sorry, I got another trauma here.
Got it. Okay, Francie has one.
Yeah, I was just gonna tell you a couple of things about the seminar, not the actual River District meeting, which was a budget meeting, but about the seminar the next day, which is an all-day seminar.
That was yesterday's?
Yeah, I was there for 2 days. So this guy named Robert Schumacher, I'm not sure which way you say it, I think it's Schumacher, from the Colorado Climate Center, he presents incredibly well, and I think we might want to consider having him come and present for us about what's going on in terms of our water and our climate and our population. It's a great presentation. Maybe at the first of the year or something, if you guys are interested. I think you'd really enjoy his presentation. And then there was the guy, there's the guy from the Water District, River District, who also spoke about Lake Powell, Lake Mead, but not quite the same kind of thing. And then there was a guy from the Family Farm Alliance. He was one of the founders of the Family Farm Alliance, which covers Oregon, California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona, I think. And his name is Dan Keppen. And it was a really great presentation. Steve, you would have loved it. he has these hats that he's going to have for sale soon that say "Make alfalfa great again," because there's such a push against alfalfa. So he had an interesting slideshow about what alfalfa fields and do for wildlife and water and stuff like that.
I had an interesting conversation with Mark Catlin about that.
At Club 20?
Yeah, well, I talked to him at the Club 20 thing, but he had been at that
Yeah.
at the water.
I went looking for you for Club 20. I didn't see
So,
you.
and
Anyway.
he's a he's a farmer, so
Yeah.
he understands it.
That's interesting to have him come and talk maybe in January. I think
Yeah, I think we would really like it. It's entertaining and really interesting look into the near future. I'm trying to think what else would be of interest to you guys. Still alfalfa. Then Lorelei Cloud, this is the last one I'll talk to you about, followed the guy from the Bureau of Reclamation. So the Bureau of Reclamation got up to talk about how we have to come up with the new Colorado Compact in 2026 and how they're already working on it, and they've been working on it for years, and he promises to be more inclusive this time and blah, blah, blah. And then Lorelei Cloud got up to speak from the Southern Ute Reservation. And she said, well, I had planned to say one thing until Wednesday, and then she just started crying. And she explained that they had put in a request to the Bureau of Reclamation for compensation for unused water. It's kind of like an augmentation thing, but they have lots of unused water over the years. And so they'd been at the table for quite a while talking with the Bureau of Reclamation about this. And on Wednesday, this was on Friday, on Wednesday, the Bureau of Reclamation had had announced that there would not be compensation for the Utes. And so she talked about that, and then, I mean, she had a hard time talking in general, and then she talked about being at the table for the negotiations for the Colorado Compact, all the tribes, but she's the voice of all the Utes, not just the Southern Utes. And it was incredibly compelling, and then she had to go and sit next to the guy from the Bureau of Reclamation to be on the same panel. And it was just so awkward. And when the Bureau of Reclamation guy sat down and the Ute lady stood up to speak, he was like this
staring straight ahead
the whole time.
Yeah.
It was just terrible.
Hot seat.
Absolutely terrible. They did talk to each other a little bit afterwards. And the third person on that panel was Taylor Hawes. She's from the River District, but she's also with Nature Conservancy. And so she got up after Lorelei and spoke in more of a positive way. But it was incredible. It was so intense, and you could have heard a pin drop in this room with hundreds of people in it. It was just unbelievable. So that was interesting, though, listening to the Bureau of Reclamation guy talk about what's probably coming with the compact, although nobody really knows. But anyway, there were a lot of other presentations too, but that was really compelling.
Can I just add a little more commentary we heard yesterday? I mean, we had some updates at the Basin Roundtable, and Andy Mueller at the River District talked with a lot of sympathy, I thought, for the tribes and their treatment of the Bureau. And what I learned more about from there was that the Bureau has
Indian
this
Affairs
really...
or Reclamation? Which Bureau?
Reclamation.
Okay.
Yeah. That the Bureau of Indian Affairs has had this long irrigation project that they've let fall into disrepair. And so even if the Utes wanted to use water, that they have not had the systems repaired at all through the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And that, proportionally, that there are many other users along the Colorado who are being paid compensation for not using their water, and the Utes have been really singled out.
Yeah.
So sort of the takeaway that
The River District was definitely in sympathy.
Yeah.
And plus they had invited her to come.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else from others? I have one thing. Over the last couple of years, I've been perusing continuing education. And I told John Peacock about one of them, and he said, why didn't you do that? And he said, we would have paid for that program. And I regret it now. So another one has popped up, and this is a circular economy course It's taught by MIT. It's a 9-week online course. The Transition for Future Sustainability. It's been really intriguing to me, and I keep looking at it thinking, oh, should I? I'm still looking at it, but I said, John, would the county spring for this if I took this course? It's $3,200. And he said, that's totally within our education budget. We could do that. You just want to tell the board and ask them if they think it's a good idea, that if I were to enroll in this. And I'm still contemplating it. I haven't heard back. I want to talk to one of their counselors. And I can tell you all more about it if you're interested. But I think it starts on the 30th, so it starts fairly soon. And I'd like my board to give me the go-ahead to take the class, because that way John feels comfortable with it. You can ask me about it, sure.
What theater, you mean, remember when we thought it was great Francis was gonna be on the Wolf thing, we didn't realize it was scheduled on all of our regular meeting days.
Well, this is an online course, and
But does
I
that mean you
think
can
it's,
take it at 2 in the morning, or?
I think I can take it whenever. But
That would be a
that's one of the
concern.
things I'll look at to make sure it doesn't conflict. I've been trying to think, do I have an extra 10 hours a week for this? And
The other thing is what is the benefit to the board and to the county of you taking this class?
Well, the outline, the quickest sentence is to say, by shifting your organization to a circular economy, you can ensure growth over time while treating waste as a design flaw. We take outdated linear systems of management, economy management, and make it circular with resiliency. So it's about creating
that mean?
sustainability. It's creating sustainable systems. If the thought of waste isn't treated as something you throw away, but it becomes part of a recycling stream, a little bit more complex than what we think of as waste and recycling today.
So what was that first term, circular economy?
Circular economy is what it's.
Can
The
you
course is
define that?
called Transition for Future Sustainability. In other words, it's creating systems within, through policy, within management of businesses, governments, complex systems that are focusing on sustainability by reducing waste. And it includes importance of things like recycling electronics and plastics to address environmental waste. Transportation of materials is part of it. Exploring the life cycles of products and systems. Looking at the best energy alternatives. Discovering the best economic and institutional structures to enable a circular economy. Identifying technical and scientific methods for achieving circularity and how to quantify it. Plus, learning the basic principles of a circular economy, because I've been thinking about this and reading about this for years, but I can't give you the
I have
perfect
no idea
example.
what
An example would be, instead of our landfill just rotting away there, we would use our landfill to generate energy. We would
send you the
use the
links to
waste
it
there,
also.
which would be part of the
that the
circular
MacArthur
economy.
That part
That's
is
what it is.
recycling waste, I
Education,
understand. I don't
also
understand how it
I'll
fits
send it
into
out.
governmental department, it sounds like it's a little confusing, but I'm not taking it. So
You're
if
not
Greg wants
taking
to,
it.
as long as he promises no thesis and white papers.
Oh, no, I'm going to lecture you on this
Well,
constantly. You know this
I
will be
can't
my...
make you promise that, because I know that
I'll
won't.
be able to say, when I was at MIT, Patty,
I've heard that from other people in the community.
usually with
and,
Harvard.
So, just a thought that this might be an appropriate thing for someone from the landfill to. be
Right,
involved.
I've actually sent it out to staff and sent this around.
So it would be a way
far and
we could
wide.
reduce the waste at the landfill.
Well, it's that. I
think
also
it's
sent
bigger
it
than
to.
waste at the
I sent it to
landfill.
CORE and I sent it to our climate people, and so anyway, you have copies of it now. So all I would need is you to entertain the idea, and
Yeah.
do I get a nod? Possible? I
Yes.
don't know. Real
You know,
skeptics here.
given how little you travel for conferences and other things that would provide your continuing education, I'm fine with this.
Oh, see, there you have it. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, thank you for
Now
that.
he's gonna be traveling to the East Coast 10 hours a
Online.
week. So
There's
we're
plenty of traffic.
I've got,
From
I've got a
his chair.
private, a
I
private.
should have
From
found
his
something
thinking
course
for a
I could have
private jet.
taken at the University of Alaska Fairbanks.
See?
and have the
Yes.
county
Just saying
pay
he's
for
not,
my
we're not
trip
paying
up
for
there.
him to sort of like embark on all this other continuing education and then now he's wanting to do this.
Well, it's
continuing
online.
It's
education.
online, and that's
So-
a huge component. If they wanted
Yeah,
me to
but then
go
you
there,
have
I
to be an
probably wouldn't do
indenture to
it.
the county for at least $3,200 worth of time after
Of
you
future
leave
I would
Right.
office in
request
4
that,
years.
Okay,
I would
that's a
request
deal.
you schedule some open discussion
To
time
talk
with
about
us
this.
to tell us what you
Oh,
learned.
believe me, I will be, just
Hey,
spouting
we did
wisdom.
pay for Rachel to go to Harvard.
She went and did the Harvard thing, right? That was the one I was going to do, and I said, no, I can't afford that. And
I was
then
gonna do
Steve,
that
like,
one too.
Steve kicked me in the shin and said, why, why didn't you do that? So, okay, thank you all for that. That's it for open discussion as far as I know.
I've got a
Rich.
couple items, yeah. And by the way, we have a clawback clause in our educational program, or else you have to stay, I think it's 7 years. So, just so you know that.
Did we send you to any
So
of
you really
these?
will be an
I wanna know,
indentured
did we
servant.
send you all?
No, I did not go to any of those. So,
One more open discussion.
He's got one, and then
I've got a couple. In fact, that's what Dan and
They're here
Diane
for
had
it,
been
yeah.
here waiting
For
for.
open discussion? Oh, you are? I thought you were not on the
Yeah,
agenda. You're right. Okay.
Dan had asked
on
that
down.
we get an opportunity in open discussion to talk about the closure dates that they have now established. We are going to start going much more public with this. So I thought it'd be an opportunity for them to come forward. You guys could ask any questions that you may have, but we are going to start publicizing this a lot.
Yeah, I thought I
A lot
heard you say-
more,
somebody
so-
say
We're
December.
gonna close the airport on January 1st until January 2nd of the next year.
I like it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, no, thanks, Rich. We're going to be, so it looks like the airport's going to be closed. We've set our dates for the spring closure. It'll be May 5th through June 1st.
Okay.
27 days, unfortunately, it's going to impact Memorial Day weekend and graduations and all of that as well. We worked with our engineering firm that does our pavement management for us, and that was the only dates we could really fit in to do this. We can't start any earlier because of the climatic conditions up here. It's just not conducive to doing that kind of repair work. And they also think we'll barely be able to fit it in within those 27 days. What we're going to do is we're going to phase some things around a little bit so that hopefully what we really have to take care of, we can do within that 27 days, and then open the airport back up, and then some of the other things we can do either at night or off to the side, so to speak, while the airport still operates. So that's what the closure's looking like. We are going to open up, we're going to close on May 5th around 9 a.m. so we can allow the flights in the morning to get out. So people that came in the night before or were here can get out, and people can also reposition their aircraft if they need to at the last minute. And then on June 1st, we'll open back up around 7 p.m. so that the flights can get back in so that people can get out the following morning. We're working on that. And we are looking at possibly some transportation options to help sort of mitigate the pain a little bit of the closure, to help get people possibly to Grand Junction, Eagle, possibly even Denver. And we might even be able to use that as sort of a test bed for when we actually have to do a major closure to reconstruct the runway in the future.
And that would be bus staying, our own bus staying.
Bus staying, some
Something
long
like-
Uber ride, things like that. No, it'd be, we're looking at a couple of companies that could potentially help us out with that.
Got it. Great. And is that the only closure, or is there another one on your, that's the only one you're talking about?
That's the only one we're thinking of at this particular time, although given the runway conditions between now and the spring closure, we may have an emergency closure. We almost had one last year.
Right.
At Christmas.
Right, it probably wouldn't be at the best time of year typically. That's when those hit. So that's always a possibility as well, but hopefully we can.
People keep referring to closure this winter, just so you know. The public is, I've heard it come up at other meetings.
It came up today.
Yeah, well, they're gonna close it this winter, and I'm like, I think it's in the spring. We're not
Yeah.
purposely closing it in the winter,
Correct.
so.
So this is the only time in this off-season that we could really do it. It's not warm enough before then,
Exactly.
and then it's too busy after then.
Mhm.
So this is kind of the window.
And if we give people enough heads up for graduations, or Memorial Day is mostly a local event,
I
really.
think that's why we're trying to
But
do
the
it.
graduations are the bigger thing, and if they are able to plan ahead, So we need to make sure we get it out there
Okay, well,
publicly.
I think they've been trying to stay real consistent with the airlines as well. This kind of this block of time so that they can plan well enough in advance as
So
well.
this is the least impact.
Hopefully
way,
this will be the last one.
Or
Except for the
maybe
big
one more big one.
Except for the big one.
Except for the big ones. What else you got? That's it?
That was
Oh,
it.
it just came up
I
on
saw
my
the
computer.
press
Came all the way
release
back
come
here for
through.
that?
Yeah.
Okay,
So you
thank
don't
you.
have anything
Okay.
else you can bring up?
So during that time,
we
you
got
can all
that.
go to the airport and eat at the Jedediah's Food Wagon.
truck.
Try the food
New
truck.
establishment in town.
Yeah, finally a food
Have to
truck.
go to Florida during that time, so I'll take your
Okay,
shuttle.
it's
The only-
3:37. If we're finished, I
I've
want to
got
rush
one
us
more.
into.
I have two.
Oh, you
One
got more?
One
Oh, you
more
still have
item,
more?
and
Sorry.
again, it's just an update more than anything, and I think you notice the shades around the room. Those are the shades that we put all over on this lower floor as part of that mitigation that you had asked for during the election time.
Got it.
They open up from the top down and the bottom up. We went ahead and put them in here, even though we had electronic shades that are in here. But so these are up.
You
can
have
be
to
lowered.
grab these.
You can just grab these. These
Like,
are
the
these don't have to
problem
be.
is, how do
Anything
you
else?
grab them at the top?
I suggest we
Well,
leave
you
it.
have to get-
Bye, Diane, bye, Dan. Nice to see you.
You
have
get
to-
a lot taller people to do those, I guess. so.
I recommend that we let
Jeffrey's
designated
tall, he
people
can
do
go
it,
for it.
only because it's easy to tweak these things.
Yeah, it is,
They're
it
like the
is.
ones at my house.
It is.
What about,
Well, it's easy to hurt them, to damage them. If
Well, hurt
you're clumsy or you don't know what you're doing, you can.
well, because you can't, it's impossible to open it
Yeah,
from the top
we don't worry
down.
about you.
Yeah.
I'll be spinning around in my,
But the other,
can't
the
reach
other improvements that you have seen, you might have seen now coming into the building, there's the, kind of the bike rack around on the.
Oh, I'll
on
look
the
for it. Yeah.
Main Street side in front of the clerk's office, just to keep people out away from the stairwell or that window well and away from that bike rack. So that was a decision that was made as well.
can I ask
Great.
a question? But they're not really secure, those metal,
It's just an effort to keep people way
there's no
away
way
from
you
the
can
windows.
zip tie them or something,
again.
or?
Well, part of the security is gonna be that, starting on the 15th, we'll have the, in-house, guard here that is armed, but also, heightened patrol and just visits by our
Okay.
sheriff's department and the PD, so.
Now, the guard is that a contractor or is it?
Yes, it's contracted,
Somebody we know, and some company we know?
Yeah, same company we used, a few years ago.
Got it, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
familiar faces.
Yes,
Anyway,
yeah,
got it,
yeah.
thank you.
And then the last thing is that we are going to be bringing in the kind of a mandatory in this building wearing your ID on the outside of your body,
Wow.
so to speak.
Otherwise, you'll get
It's just part
hassled
of
by
this.
the guard.
Yeah,
Right.
I
yeah.
lost
We
my,
you can put them on your.
Mine doesn't attach anymore to the lanyard.
Yeah, we'll get lanyards.
I
We'll
don't
get
have
them
a
out.
picture. I don't think I have an ID.
Yeah, mine's in my wallet, so that
Mine's in
doesn't
my
work.
car.
But it's just a part of identification, part of the risk management that we have.
Starting when?
Starting to look. I don't have a date for that yet.
Okay.
I don't know, I kind of like when nobody knows who I am in the office.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it'll have your pictures
Eddie
on them.
eavesdrops.
You know, where-
Exactly.
Like that.
Loiter.
Easy
I don't know
ID.
she's the boss.
I was just wondering where I
That
got
was
the
it.
lanyard for that.
Okay.
That's
That was
it?
all I had.
good.
Great, all right, thank you all.
They
With
come
that,
with
I think we are,
Do you have something?
CCI meeting or
oh,
something.
Steve, did you have something else? Because we want to get to our exec and
Um,
get bus riders on the road.
If you forget,
No, I
you
can't
had 30
think what it
seconds.
was.
Must not have been very important then, huh? That's what my mom always used to say.
I should have written it down what I was gonna
Okay, well,
talk about, but now it slipped my mind.
talk about it tomorrow.
So I could, if I remember tomorrow, I will.
Okay, you've got till
I'll
tomorrow.
think
So
of
do
it
we need
when
to
we're
make a
about
motion?
5
We'll all
minutes
think
into
of
the
something.
exec
We
session.
did.
Right.
I'll make it.
3 a.m. Just send Rich a text when you remember.
Purpose is up.
Oh, I remember, I
Oh.
remember.
The last item.
So,
Here for 10
Chad
minutes, so-
Fennerbridge said the other day that the chef at the senior center unfortunately handed in his resignation.
Oh, too bad.
He's like the best chef in the whole city of Aspen probably, but he has family things happening elsewhere that he has to move away and tend to family affairs. So that's really sad news for everybody. Was really enjoying his cooking, and Chad's in the process of interviewing
too bad.
new cooks, and so
Sorry
it's
to hear that.
sad news because he he's so good. The food is so good, and he's very personable, and sorry to hear that he's going.
Thanks for that, Steve. Okay, we had just tabled the exec session. We're still in exec.
No, we need a motion to.
Do we
go
still
back
need a
into
motion
our
to go back
continued
in?
Executive
Are we just
session
gonna stay here?
Is that your motion?
for the purposes
Should
of,
we go upstairs? You want to stay here?
can I finish the
As
motion?
long as we can set it up with Abby.
Where, are we still set up upstairs?
No, we can do it. Okay.
So,
We could do 5-minute break.
Thanks, Josie.
and they-
Thanks,
They
Reagan.
can be exiting and.
can I finish making the motion?
I want, well, yes, and we can tell, is Grassroots even still here? Oh, you're still here. Okay, we need the motion. We're not done yet. Okay, go ahead,
I
Patty.
make a motion to go back into our continuing special meeting executive session for the purposes of Habitat for Humanity property interest acquisition discussion and council pursuant to CRS 246424B.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're back in exec. Thank you.
Are we going upstairs?